Hello everyone, welcome to the LightBringers podcast episode 35 where I'm trying to get this intro done. Okay, welcome. We're going to be talking about Guild Wars 2 because why not? Because that's definitely something we're supposed to be doing right now. It's a Guild Wars 2 podcast, so it would be beneficial and helpful. I do have some amazing guests here as well. We have the live show going on, so if you're watching live, listening live, if we're in the background, welcome, hello, hello, hello. We had some amazing music going on before we came on, you know, because it's important. And yes, actually, you've been on the whole time, so actually everyone has heard you and probably heard you while I was doing the intro. So oh no, that's an actual lie. There you go. Just trying to freak the guests out. Actually, I wasn't sure. But it's okay. Hello, everyone. Say hello all together.
1,
Hi.
2, 3.
Wait.
Oh,
Okay, let's start over. Ready? On the count of 4. No, 5. Let's say 4.
What?
cool.
4, 3, 1, 3.
Hi. Hi. Did we do it?
I think so. I think we got
If we,
it.
were, if we were flying a plane, it would not go well.
Probably not.
Good
yeah,
analogy.
let's be real.
Rook has been here more than twice. Rook has definitely been here more than twice.
Fox is getting in on that gag that with the rebrand, I have, become an entirely different, new, elevated version of myself, really launching this whole new identity out here in the world. Yeah.
So yeah, twice. Yes.
And I've become an ASMR streamer.
Boots was serenading us, and it was very good.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, Boots.
Yeah.
I'm sending you a cease and desist letter. That's my
A cease and
niche.
desist letter? Wow.
Hey, Boots.
Yeah.
I'm sending you a party on and have a great time letter.
Okay. Which one? What happens if I read the cease and desist after the party on and have a great time letter?
Party on while ceasing and desisting.
I'll try my best.
And hey, Jebro. I'm sending you an edible arrangement. It'll probably be bad.
An edibles
Did
arrangement?
you say an Oedipal arrangement?
edible
Because that is
arrangement.
completely, if you don't know what that is.
Edible arrangements?
It's like a fruit bouquet.
Yeah, we're sending you an
okay.
Oedipal arrangement.
The
We're
Oedipal
we're
ones
sending you
were-
your mother.
Edible arrangement.
Yeah, no,
We're sending
no
your
boots.
mother,
No,
who you
no,
haven't
no
seen in a
boots.
long time.
No boots.
And your father's gonna be there too.
We're not going, no.
But your long lost mother will be super mega hot.
We're
so
no
Yeah.
good.
what happens.
Oh, God. Oh, wow.
I think we really did a good intro this time. I
Yes.
feel like this is the one that we've been
Yeah.
waiting for,
That's definitely not going to get promoted. I'm definitely not going to
I
get
love an
promoted.
edible, eatable arrangement.
I definitely think
You need to look up
that we
Oedipal,
found
I
a
think.
better. I think we found a better title for the episode than dropping a load. I think it has to be Oedipal arrangement now. I
Eatable.
think.
Adjective. Fit to be consumed as food.
No, we know what edible means.
No, I'll message you later. Okay, this is not something we're talking about on the podcast. This is a bit too much, I
And
think, for
eatable.
everyone. No. Boots, can you DM it to
definition.
Kroof and let them look it up
All
because I
right,
think they
okay,
might
all
be
right.
confused.
I feel like I understand like Urban Dictionary what it means, but
No,
it is
Oedipal.
proper.
Do you know what Oedipus is?
Oh, you mean Oedipal?
Yes.
The Oedipal
Oedipal.
complex.
It's just that Jebro is aggressively British.
Oh, it's
so
the
you have to
British.
I am
translate.
aggressively British,
okay.
yes.
No,
But
I know
also
the
Boots
Oedipal
is
complex.
Canadian and probably says it that way as well.
You know, a lovely Oedipus complex or an Electra
You're muted,
complex.
Boots.
Whatever way someone said it before me says it.
Okay. Anyway, episode 35. It is episode 35. I thought it was 35 last time and I got corrected, and then it was 34, so it's okay. I just checked YouTube as well. I don't know why I've got such aggressive background sound today. It's really
Britishness?
weird.
I can't hear the construction noise. You're good on our end.
Okay, you can't have like a little every so often. Okay.
No.
Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about stuff. There was loads. I don't know how many articles came out this week. basically, Guild Wars 2's expansion, which you don't know, you might be new listening to this podcast for the first time, so welcome. It is on YouTube, it is on Spotify, it is on Twitch VOD, it is on loads of places, iTunes as well, just as much listened to there as it is on Spotify. Loads of people on iTunes. Listenership is increasing a lot. The most popular episode right now is, guess what it is? Why you should play Guild Wars 2 in 2022.
The irony.
But that's audibly as well, actually. So people actually look at, try and find those podcasts, which is quite interesting. There was approximately, it's pretty good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There was about 10 or so articles released in the last week. Embargoes lifted from ArenaNet onto various places who got to play Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons for for the first time before any of us, basically. Lucky people. Not jealous, any of us at all. We weren't talking about that before the podcast started. And they got to play different bits and bobs. They got to play on the Turtles, they got to play the Elite Specs, they got to play a Strike, they got to play different things. And we're going to go through and talk about all the stuff, judging by what they've written, also just talk about our thoughts and feelings about maybe what we think is going to be involved, maybe additional stuff. Doing what we normally do, and for as long as we're going to do it today, because who knows, last time was 4 hours. Probably won't be that long, but I'm not going to
what happened after I left?
We talked about bobbits.
Talked about
Twisted.
me, didn't you? Talked about me. You totally talked about me, didn't you?
We talked about you for, at least another 2 hours. Boots, I'm sorry. We were going to tell you, but you'll have to watch the VOD. You'll have to watch the VOD.
Man, I'm not going to do that.
To be fair, most of it was good. Most of it was positive.
Okay, that's good. All right.
Most of it was good.
Oh, what the podcast? I didn't even say that. That wasn't even me.
I was gonna say also, I don't remember, was last week's the why you should play in 2022?
No, it was, you weren't here for that one.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Who was here for that one?
It was podcast is the one I'm not on.
I think it was just us
We
three.
love you. We love having you be here. We couldn't do this without you and your best face of all of the different streaming platforms, content creation platforms, most attractive face anywhere on the internet. We couldn't do it without you. So that's right.
When you make that face, even more so. Okay, so should I tell you what was cool? Actually, there was one article from a magazine called Enemy. Now, Enemy is an English. It was an English publication back in the day before the internet was a thing, which I used to read daily when I was like a kid growing up. That's the magazine I used to read to get all my band music and demos and stuff, and to find out about new bands and gigs and stuff. I used to go to the back page and try and find all the gigs in the Astoria and Brixton Academy and stuff, and I used to go to London, and it was just Enemy have got a review or some kind of information about Guild Wars 2 for a start, and then it was about End of Dragons. I was just oh, that's kind of nice, that's kind of cool, just from my childhood. I was oh, those memories. So that was quite cool, and the article was actually very good as well. I wasn't expecting it to be anything. I was expecting it to be really sweeping, but that's actually probably one of the biggest, in terms of people that get their eyes on websites wise, that's probably one of the biggest ones. That's a really big deal that's an article in Enemy.
I think there's a PC Gamer article too.
I was going to say, PC Gamer is also a really good one to hit, which was good to see that they got people from PC Gamer to come and do this press.
Sure. They normally do MMORPG as per usual.
Did IGN get some? I don't know how IGN is faring. Maybe.
Yeah,
IGN normally does, actually. I'm surprised that Game Space is normally a thing, and massively OP, with Flameseeker Chronicles. Esports is a newer one. They've done more recently with our friend Jessica. PC Invasion is a newer one I haven't heard much about, but there you go.
They're invading.
Yeah. God is a Geek is one as well. I don't know which one. Never heard of it before. And Screen Rant's pretty good. So yeah, there's loads of ones, but like you say, PC Gamer, pretty big one. So this was interesting. this was interesting. And we like, according to the articles, you know, we're probably going to find out some more information as well, and then in the near future, closer up. There is a feeling that maybe that people out there have mentioned as well, like just before we start getting into the nitty gritty, that maybe content creators would have been a good bunch of people to maybe include on this as well, as they did in the past. And I wanted to just quickly mention it. We don't have to talk about it too much. And maybe if people have a feeling on it, it's up to them. They don't have to say it all. I would say that there is a feeling from me that I'm very glad that a lot of the people who wrote these articles play the game. Like, they actually play the game. That is cool. Not all of them, I don't think, but I think, you know, Guild Wars 2, I think it's good because Guild Wars 2 as well is very, like, is kind of new player friendly. Like, if you weren't a great player, you could probably jump on a mount and have fun and just press a couple of buttons, you know? But a lot of the people who wrote the articles are actually players, so that's good. But I definitely think, you know, creators can give their own spin on things and definitely would have done something different and interesting with video as well. But I think that's probably why, because it feels like, I don't know if there's a feeling that maybe it was specific for written articles. And I don't think a lot of us have experience in that. I mean, I know I've written articles in the past, like for years and years and years ago. I think, Rook, you do. I'm not sure about Boots and Kroof, but like, yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on what I'm saying? Again, no one has to say anything if you're concerned, but that's just a thought I had.
Yeah, I feel like we all have thoughts, and of course, it is.
You'd hope so.
And we all have thoughts and feelings about it, and definitely at the moment when it first was released, I was like, people got to play early, and I was like, I don't think partners got any access. So it was a slight bit of like jealousy, but not bad jealousy, more so just like, oh, I wish I was in that position as well. And
actually, Kroof, that's envy you were feeling, because you can't do it. Jealousy is something you can do. Envy is something you can't do.
Well, I guess.
We're learning so much today. Wow.
But
you're very welcome.
Yeah, I think it would have been an interesting decision to allow partners to do like video capture, to do a little bit of a spotlight teaser, because other MMOs, especially recently, have been doing more marketing with actual video content creators and also blog posts as well. And I think it's just another way to get the game out and to get the expansion hype going. So it would have been, I think, a good move, but maybe there is that underlying sense of like spoilers or things leaking too early, or, you know, maybe it's just not ready to be actually shown through video, and just relying on screenshots and articles are maybe a bit better. But yeah, I think it would have been an added tool in the toolkit to get a different medium other than blog posts.
That makes sense, because if you look at every single article, every screenshot is the same. So they've been supplied. Yes. So they weren't allowed to take any footage or any screenshots. Yeah.
And some of that could have been that they just weren't able to set up some sort of system that they felt comfortable with as far as the recording of footage went. You know, some of these other media tour things that we've talked about, I was lucky to be a part of this past year. And Jeb, I know you also were, right? And a lot of these different companies are facilitating it either through like remote capture, where they themselves control everything. Like, you might be able to hit record and stuff, right? But then they like parse and send you all of it. Some of them, they allow you to record on your own end with your own footage, but there's like very strict guidelines about what you can or can't show and all that kind of stuff. Because obviously, we are in a situation right now where in-person events where, you know, we would be on PCs controlled by them with, you know, specific, you know, regulations and all kinds of stuff. It's not really happening. So I can definitely see that this seems to have been, like you pointed out, more of a text-based informational release, specifically with news outlets and with supplied, you know, screenshots and things like that they were allowed to use, and then being able to talk about their own experience, which is nice. But I agree with everybody in the sense that I think that more and more and more at this point, many people aren't even getting their news from written articles anymore. You know, social media video platforms, streamers, all those sorts of things, or even websites that have like hosts and games, like shows that talk about gaming and stuff like that. More and more people are consuming and getting that kind of information through those sorts of outlets. So to not be able to have some kind of visual component or additional footage and things like that, it's kind of a bummer, because I think it really could have gotten people excited and probably would have reached far wider. And getting creators involved is just kind of the same thing, right? I think that when you get content creators involved in projects like this now, it like echoes and amplifies the hype and the personal connection that people feel to these kinds of releases of news and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, like I do writing for Gamer Escape as well. So of course there's that moment where I was like, oh, this would have been so fun, even if it was just written, to be able to kind of deliver this information or get a preview or be a part of it. But we've had all the beta periods, you know what I mean? We've had open and accessible testing. We've had things that as creators we can talk about and hype up. So I'm not that upset. I just think it would have been a good way to, amplify the news that was being released across multiple different platforms.
And particularly because we have yet to really see a lot of driving action with the expansion of End of Dragons. And I think we were all under the impression that we weren't seeing the strike missions, or there wasn't an actual gameplay live stream that showed off the strike missions because of spoiler reasons. And yet, come to find out, they were willing to spoil that My Trin is the first strike mission. But My Trin as a villain and as a boss isn't really that spoilery, because we fought My Trin so often. So I do think if they weren't going to do, partners where we could collect the footage and, other, collaborations, it would have been nice to then, along with the blog posts, have a more marketable strike mission trailer that ArenaNet themselves developed and released to show off the gameplay of it. Because I think that's still something that is really missing. And at this point of marketing, and we're so close, I think we really should hopefully see more gameplay trailers and gameplay footage before the actual release.
Yeah, I would agree. I would also say as well, pardon me, if you are some noise there, that's fun times. If you are worried about spoilers at all, and also stuff we're talking about in this, then maybe hold off on this podcast if you want to. It's not going to be major spoilery. We're talking about a mission. We're talking about a couple of bits and bobs from End of Dragons. It's nothing big. A strike, as Kroof mentioned, one of the boss names, and also some legendary stuff. So it's no biggie. Okay, what is that flipping noise?
Sounds like plumbing.
Flipping, it's pipes. Someone's having a shower. Jesus Christ, they're so thin. The walls are so thin. It's actually ridiculous, and it's kind of annoying. Okay, so we're going to go on to the podcast, and I'm going to get someone else to speak. Such an annoying noise. Okay, so they've toured around Echovald Wilds a bit, and they were talking about. I'm going to try and put this on, actually. I'm going to try and put a little bit of the old videos on so you can see a little bit of Echovald. Oh, this is actually the mission. I guess they were kind of doing this while they were running around, so I'll just slap this on. I've got a couple of screenshots from the articles. Nothing major. Nothing too ridiculous. There we go. I don't know if there's anything to say about Echovald Wilds, really. I mean, what they were talking about, they just said it looked cool. But Kroof, you did
I guess
some
one
finger
question
things.
is, do you have to be on the turtles?
I think in the articles they said that there will be NPCs on Siege Turtles as well. So as a way, if we get into Echovald Wilds, because I believe Echovald Wilds, I mean, in my head, I've created the narrative that Echovald Wilds comes before the Jade Sea, which is where they said you would start to get your Siege Turtle. And to do these events, if no one had their Siege Turtles in the first month or so, however long this process takes, it would kind of be like impossible to do certain events if you had to have Siege Turtles. So they did mention that there will be NPCs that either they shoot the things to progress it, or you can get on their Siege Turtles to shoot and progress it. So little things have been thought of.
Are you talking about the mission specifically?
Yes, the dynamic event mission thing.
Okay.
And they did mention that this wasn't the actual meta event that they referenced that's going to be happening, but that it's actually kind of like an intricate side event chain that happens with these. And it did sound like there were like important parts of it where, yes, you would be using the siege turtle if you have it. But like Kroof said, that I don't think it would be completely prohibitive if you were participating in a different way.
Exactly. And I think it's really important to point out that it's not a part of the meta, because from my reaction to what I've read is that this mission, this dynamic event, seemed really cinematic, which of course we haven't played it, but just hearing about it, I'm getting the impression that the events in the open world are quite elevated. And if this is just a side mission, I just am really excited to see what they do with the meta events, because those are typically where you have the big budget bosses, the art assets, the intricate phasing. So I'm really excited to see that. But in regards to this mission, they talked a little bit about like going deeper into the hideout and seeing like test subjects and you know, spooky, eerie things, which definitely creates a tone for this map, which is really exciting. I got a little bit more tone from the writing than I actually did on the live stream way back when. So I really enjoyed the information that we got.
It's very true, actually. And yeah, because they're so descriptive about the areas as well. And I think you're right. You know, I don't think you're going to have to be on I don't think, maybe that you have to be on the siege turtle to destroy like the walls and stuff to get in. I think that would be cool. I don't think being able to use rams or anything from World War, maybe that would be cool. But like being able to use abilities on it would be weird. I think that would take away the whole siege turtle thing, because I think that's what the siege turtle's abilities are about, right? You know, because in new maps, it's like any of the other maps, you know, with Path of Fire, if you've got a portal, you use the wolf. What is he called? Oh my God, the Springer. Not the Springer, why have I forgotten a bit? Jackal, yeah, sorry, wow. The wolf? The wolf. But like, you know, and then you use the Springer for height, you use, you know, if you want to just jump up those couple of levels and whatnot. So it's like, that is very much what the siege turtle's function is going to be, right? Like, it's all about the weaponry and stuff.
I do like that it does seem as though the siege turtle's siege isn't just for taking out random NPCs. It will have purpose in the maps for destructible environmental stuff, and it seems like it anyway.
Yeah, and everything Kroof said, I'm like, yes, I totally feel that, because there were so many details in this article that felt like I kept thinking to myself, is this the meta? And then I'd read in the article where they're like, this is not the meta. And I went, but it sounds like the way this is told and all of the lore that they've kind of even included about the different gangs that are in opposition in this area and what they've been working on and this secret weapon and all this stuff, where a lot of the writers were reiterating that it really felt like it was setting the stakes and that they were really starting to get this big momentum into what would be overall the bigger picture of a lot of the things in Cantha and pushing on into like those mysterious kind of conflicts and, you know, the larger scale picture of what we might be sort of working against in the expansion. I loved that. I thought it really did seem like there was a lot there, and the writers themselves were picking up on it in a way that felt intuitive. So it wasn't just, you know, like we're just all regurgitating some script or something. Like, it really did feel like they got everything from just playing it and were then sharing their experience.
I'm going to bring our faces back. There we go.
Bring our beautiful faces back now!
Because we've seen the 4 pictures I had, which is for a good like 5 or so minutes. Yeah, I do wish there was just a bit more meat to this. You know, a little bit of a preview video, like a little bit of a like, here's the event kind of thing. Like, here's the stuff. Like, here's the siege turtles firing against the wall.
That's probably one of the reasons why they didn't release it to all the other partners, is because they don't want to give too much meat out there. They want to save it for when we could chew on it all together, I suppose. It seems though they want to. I mean, they don't even have the release date out yet. I think they're playing things very close to their chest, and
it is interesting, isn't it? Because like we've talked about this comparison so many times in the past. We're Heart of Thorns, like we're so so involved. And again, I think this one's been definitely better. It's definitely better than Path of Fire, but still they have not matched the promotional stuff for Heart of Thorns at all, in my opinion.
I'm trying to remember. Okay, so for Path of Fire and Heart of Thorns, what did people get to see of the maps before it came out?
You got the instance and a bit of the first map.
Did you?
Yeah, you only really got to play a bit of the first map, and that was it.
That's the test rev, wasn't it, as well?
Yes. They didn't do live streams for Tangled Depths or Orc Basin or Dragon Stand. So
that's true.
With End of Dragons, it is a little bit different that they're actually showing us all of the maps, but we haven't been able to actually play them ourselves. But they did actually, in my opinion, they showed the gameplay of the game a lot more during Heart of Thorns. They actually showed off the wyvern fights and different art assets for certain boss encounters and dynamic event chains. Because metas were so new to that expansion, I think they really had to show us. So maybe it's not necessarily considered all new because metas are a very consistent thing in Guild Wars 2 now. But I think the way that they've been talking about them, it's like, why not show a little bit of that off if you are saying that they are elevated and really good? Just little portions of that, like the wyvern fight for Heart of Thorns.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Well,
I mean, it's still fine. We still don't know. I mean, yeah, we are very... Yeah, I feel like I'm really excited for the expansion, but I'm also just like a little bit like, yeah, the release date not being a thing is definitely a downer. It's definitely a downer. Like I'm not
think of it as a downer.
I mean, well, it's.
I mean, I agree with you, Boots.
It's no. I mean, it's a personal opinion. It's not a official statement from Jebro's team. It's just like it's not a downer because it's more of a downer because I'm seeing everyone else kind of getting a bit down about it because they want to book time off work and they want to do that kind of stuff, and I feel for them. Whereas I don't personally care that much. I am a little bit like, in terms of planning for myself, like selfishly and content and stuff like that. Yeah, I am a little bit like sad that I haven't got a date. I think release dates primarily, which is something Rook said last week as well, and I think we were kind of all rallied around with something about building excitement, but also how Endwalker was as well with the release date and how that, because I remember you talking about how the excitement, you could kind of feel the excitement just raise up a little bit. Whereas I feel like in Guild Wars 2 right now, the content wise, we haven't really got anything. And because before Christmas we have, I mean, I know this expansion, but like before Christmas we had the live stream, and then we haven't had anything until next week. So there has been a period of lull, which they could have really used. I feel like they could have used that period a little bit better. And I know they've had the release of the articles, but that doesn't really... Pretty old school.
Yeah. Well, we're going to know in about a week, right?
Yeah.
About...
We're going to know loads of stuff in a week, I think.
Yeah. So I'm not too concerned about the release date. I think with all the other stuff that you've we're saying that we feel, or some of you feel, might be lacking with the amount of information we're getting. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of it as like the cost benefit analysis kind of deal. Like how much do you want to hold back to get your player base to enjoy, and how much do you need to show to get new eyes into the game? And I'm trying to think of what in the expansion would people who don't know anything about Guild Wars 2, would they be advertising through these articles for people who don't know anything about Guild Wars 2 yet, or people who know about Guild Wars 2 and want to look into the new expansion? Like what,
Yeah.
That's a good question.
It does. Oh, I was going to say, it does feel as if you bring up a good point on that, because I do feel as if a lot of this has been more insular. And it's interesting because I actually think that overall they have done quite a bit. The live streams and the information and these articles and all the beta testing periods and everything. I don't want anybody to take away feeling as though ArenaNet, I don't know, put a sticker on a lamppost somewhere in the world and that was the only advertising that they did, because that's definitely not been the case. Like, they have done so much and there's been a lot of it that we have seen. But I do agree with you, Boots, in that I think that a lot of it, as you said, almost feels more geared to those who exist in the game. And a lot of the features and things that we're seeing or hearing about are things that we kind of know to expect, as opposed to feeling like if I showed this trailer to somebody, like we talked about last week, right? It would be a pitch of the story setup so far. If I showed this trailer to somebody, it would be a pitch of what meta events and event chains are in Guild Wars 2. Like you were saying, Kroof, right? Like a lot of these people, I love that a lot of the people that wrote the articles are Guild Wars 2 players, because it does actually give insight into the game in a way that like makes sense that they're talking about and that you can, read about. And very often that's not the case. And you get like completely out of context or off base reviews about things. But I also do think that there is a sense from a lot of these articles, again, where I don't know if they're pitching them to people who have never touched this game before. You know what I mean? Like I
totally know what you mean.
It's like I would love to see something where, yes, they were given a whole breakdown of some of the major highlights in the game, and probably the closest we see to that is them kind of pitching the strike missions. But I don't really feel as if I sat down and I didn't know it, I would get that sense from, you know what I mean? Go ahead.
So it's so funny. Okay, so earlier in the show, I forget who said it, but they were very happy that the people who wrote all these articles were people who actually played the game.
Yeah, I did.
So that's a great.
You said that.
Definitely said that.
So that's great, right? So I agree.
That was good.
But it definitely does skew how the articles are written, right? Like, so if it's people who already play the game, they know who.
That's true.
They know, as a player, they know what's new and what's not new. They don't have to explain features that are interesting if they're already in the game. So all the articles basically are going to be for people who play the game just like they do, rather than new players. And I think maybe that is a decision that was taken by ArenaNet, and I don't think it's a bad decision necessarily, because I have a feeling that right now, it's possible that with the last two expansions, or at least with Path of Fire probably, that they found that most of the revenue for selling Path of Fire came from people who have already played Guild Wars 2, existing players, rather than from new players. And it's possible that they're therefore catering to existing players.
I don't think that's ever the case.
Anyway, I'm just saying that I think that it's possible that they're catering all of their marketing to existing players, or players who used to exist. And then it's possible that they're going to concentrate on new players for the Steam release instead.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Steam. Actually, yeah, you bring up a good point with the Steam. I keep forgetting about it.
Wait, stop. Boots has just made 2 good points in a row. Fine. Let's go. Let's continue.
Damn, Jebro.
Oh boy. I'm just not going to talk the rest of the day.
Oh, I love you, Boots. I'm joking.
Backhand and slap that face. Anyway,
that's all right. I would have said it to anyone that made points that were together in a row.
Together forever, friends and stuff. Anyway, if that is the case, Boots, I would say and put into the universe that I would kind of forget about Path of Fire's sales to a degree, because there was no marketing with Path of Fire. It was it was a shotgun release, really. It was they had the end of season 3, and then they had the live stream the next week, and then they said that the expansion was launching in a month and 2 weeks. It was such a short time frame for the potential for marketing, but then there wasn't marketing that was outside of the game. It was just directly to players.
It was weird, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was a little strange.
Was it PAX they did that announcement? I can't remember now, actually. I think
it
was.
They didn't do any announcement at any convention. It was in the studio. They didn't go anywhere to spread it. They did.
Oh no, Ice Brood was.
That was Ice Brood. So the expansion of Path of Fire as an expansion, because we're talking about a sellable product that has a price tag, that didn't have any advertising to the outside world, but it was a very short time frame, so I kind of understand. But with End of Dragons, we had upwards of a year or more to actually start to spread it beyond the existing community and the existing population. So they might have faltered in that degree. And I don't think they've really been satisfying even the community that much, because we are, as we've seen on Reddit and just from talking about it, there are things missing. The quantity of the advertising in the streams is great. And I totally agree with Rook. That has been amazing. And it's something I like. But I don't think the quality has kept up with the quantity, to say. It's not bad, but it's kind of.
You mean what we're seeing? You mean what we're seeing specifically? Okay.
Yeah.
I think they're very paranoid about spoilers.
And I don't think that makes sense. Maybe it's the history of Path of Fire's leaks, but I think especially in the 2022, I was really expecting, as you mentioned, Booth, the downtime. I was expecting to see some trailer. So this month of January is a little bit of a dead zone.
Yeah, they exactly. There should have been some stuff this month. There just should have been. It's the month before the third expansion for Guild Wars 2. Where literally they're potentially changing the state of Endgame. They've got the most legendary weapons that are coming out ever in an expansion. They've got the first duo mount ever in the game. They're literally going back to Camphor. They're literally doing the thing that everyone wanted them to do that played Guild Wars. It's a big deal, and there is nothing this month at all really other than some articles. And that's a big problem. It is. It just is. It's
unfortunate that it's also like directly after their winter break and vacation. So like inherently, it would probably be
a little planning time.
A smaller.
Yeah.
It would take a bit longer to wind up and get things going, but maybe you should have planned that before the break.
Well, that's the thing, exactly. Well, companies that release their games in February or January, I mean, I'm going to sound a little bit harsh, but it's not an excuse, really. It just isn't, because like it's a marketing thing, and it's like, you know, if you're releasing a product in January or February, you plan for that to be a thing. You do stuff, like you make trailers, you do stuff. Like COVID is a thing and everything else, and like. That I feel like is a good excuse. But I think there's stuff releasing this in February, and which is very, very important to talk about. They're going to have a massive competitor in February. They've got Lost Ark coming out. Everyone that plays MMORPGs has Lost Ark on their radar. Whether or not they're going to play it or not, the idea that it's free.
Yeah.
It's free.
And if you just like RPGs, which MMOs have an RPG element, Elden Ring, you know, another game to maybe take people away from another fantasy world.
So it's important.
That is very important. And
going
back to, oh no, it's okay. But like going back to what kind of got us on that, these articles and the release date question, right? It's so funny because I honestly feel pretty evenly divided on both sides of this. I think there is absolute precedent for them not having a specific hard release date right now. I personally don't even necessarily think it's that big of a deal, because just like we talked about, you know, it's like people will kind of generally plan anyway around February. There have been delays in other games, which did cause big issues for players that had already taken time off, and, you know, led the devs to feel as though they were disappointing, or like gave people fodder to say, although many communities were very supportive given the current state of the world. But I think it does always open this window to backlash, right? And I could see people being like, oh, you know, ArenaNet delayed the expansion if they had to for some reason. You know, like, oh, another thing, you know, something that's the nail in the coffin, because everybody's always saying this for every single MMO that's on the market.
Or any game at all, yeah.
Like, any game whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I can see that. But I will also say that, especially with these articles, right? With this news blitz, it felt really awkward. I got a sense from the writers that it was awkward to, at the end, say, End of Dragons is coming out in February sometime.
Yeah,
that's so true.
That.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that too from my recent media tour experience, where in every video, right, the tagline that, you know, we kind of, not that it was specifically told that we had to do this, we had certain things we did have to make sure to include, but like almost every creator across the board at the start of the video, at the end of the video, reiterated, this is what it is. This is the title. This is the date that early access starts. This is the date that it releases, right? Because again, you are creating a timeline in people's minds of when they need to buy the product, when they need to play the product, when they need to schedule around the product. And like you were all saying, if you do that earlier, then people are more likely to already have that as a priority versus like now where, like you were both just pointing out, when those other games come out in February and then we finally get a release date, it's going to be like, oh, well, I knew already that such and such was on this day and this is on that day. So, okay, well, I guess if I have time now, what is it? February some 2020 something? Okay, that's when they're coming out. Okay, well, maybe I'll play if I have time. So I don't necessarily think it's good or bad either way. I mean, I'm going to be playing it no matter what. I don't think it's the end all be all, but I do think there is some discussion there. And especially with these articles where if you are flooding information across, again, multiple platforms, which you should be doing, you should be reiterating the same message. And a lot of that message does have to do with what can you expect? When is it? Why should you play it, whether you're new or old? And then giving players some kind of guideline, deadline, time frame within their minds to really maximize your revenue window. I think I don't work professionally in advertising, so
well, I mean that's it, isn't it? I mean, because obviously Guild Wars 2 makes its money from the gem store. That's its big, that's its consistent earner. There is no other way other than buying expansions. That's a very tiny, like when there's no expansion out or there's no hype around that, that's their, that's kind of their backup. They're just whatever. And then when, there's expansions, that's their big boom. That's their big amount. But obviously before Guild Wars 2 came out, that wasn't a thing they probably had because expansions weren't going to be a thing. Like it was always going to be maybe Living World, what came with Living World, and also expansion. The Black Lion Trading Company, whatever, and gems and stuff. Like there was always going to be the plan. So expansions, like they changed their mind with that. So maybe I can let them off a little tiny bit. But I think nowadays, maybe back with Path of Fire, maybe Heart of Thorns, it wouldn't have mattered too much because I know what you're saying. Yeah, people are probably just gonna play it anyway, and it doesn't matter. But I think now specifically in the day 2022, there is a lot out there. There is a lot more to play. There is a lot more to get involved with. There are more MMORPGs than ever. There is and everyone's production schedule has been shrunken and release window has been put into 2022 now. Like, there's so much more coming out this year where I've put off buying games and sometimes I've actually forgotten about purchasing them because I've moved on to something else because there's something just the next week or whatever, ridiculously. And you're like, whoa, it's like Elder Scrolls Online. I still haven't completed the latest storyline. Like I've really got to go back and do that. And there's some bits and bobs I've got to get towards that. And I'm like, oh, well, I haven't paid for that or bought it yet. And it's like, oh, yeah, so there is something about that. But I agree, like, if people want to play it, they're going to play it at the end of the day. But I think in terms of what the actual population does in the game and how Guild Wars 2's population is so important to things like map metas and everything else, like having that big burst of people on the day, and I don't think they're going to suffer from that, but that consistent amount of people for like a long period of time, especially if metas are going to be such a big, because we were talking about Endgame, right? And we were talking about literally, like Kroof was saying last week, metas are like the Endgame. We kind of all came around to this opinion, like, yeah, it kind of is for like most people. Like that's the thing that most people get involved with, like at least once a week, maybe. So
I think I've decided that I have a different opinion on the release date now issue. I don't think it should be released told about next week. I think what they gotta do is not tell anyone ever, and then just surprise
come to the dark side,
and then just surprise release it as soon as people online are starting to get sour on Lost Ark. I think Lost Ark is coming on February 11th, and like if people are having a bad time not being able to, if people are having a bad time not being able to like get into the servers or something, if there's a big wait time, or if like people have played it for a while and like I'm bored of it, they're like, hey, now we got this coming out right now. Congratulations, everybody, come here instead.
It's definitely an interesting I do. I mean, it would be interesting. It'd be funny.
No, I mean, that would be hilarious. And hey, that very
And
well
also
could be part
impossible.
of why they haven't set a specific date. They could be waiting to see how the releases of those games go. And until hype dies down, I don't think that's what
I
they
don't
would
think
do
that's
to
what's
schedule
happening.
it. But, I mean, it's interesting and it could be a method. But should we get into some of the
Yeah,
quotes about?
let's do actually talk about the Arcos.
Oh, fine.
Okay, well, we've kind of talked about the release date. I think we're going to talk about it every week until it comes out.
Yeah.
Okay, so
on
Echovald
the
Wilds. Yeah, that's right. I think one thing about Echovald Wilds, I just wrote a little bit here, and I think for me, one of the most important things in MMORPG design is sound design. Sound design is something I get really hot under the collar for. I'm not gonna lie. I really enjoy that sound. I used to do sound for like short film and stuff. I used to be the boom operator as well, and I used to come up with like sound effects and stuff. So I know how difficult that is. And also I think we can all just appreciate sound and how important it is in video games. Obviously, you know, we can all hear, and like that is a really awesome thing, and we're privileged to have that, you know. And other people, there are people who can't, and obviously, you know, there's different things like visuals and everything else, and that's something I'm just, you know, pointing out. You know, I don't want to sound like an arsehole when I say that. So I don't know if that sounded weird. But there was a comment from GameSpace. They said odd animal sounds might whisper past you as you venture forth to take a look at the wildlife, which is quite cool. I was like, you can kind of imagine the eeriness of Echovald, and kind of just from that comment, I was like, oh, kind of like that.
I just like the idea of like you running by a Karen and the Karen's just like, your shoe's untied. He's whispering, you know.
Yeah, that's it. You ruined it.
I liked your Fashion Wars better last week.
Oh.
Damn. No, I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
And we even saw in Icebird Saga, I mean, one of the areas that I thought was really exceptional and really clever was as we got into, is it Bjora Marches? And
Yes.
the whisper effects and the effects with Bone Skinner and stuff like that. So Guilders, who has always done a phenomenal job of dynamic sound design in the game and on the maps to a degree that you might not even know about unless you actually kind of go and really try to listen to everything that's happening, be it like the range of voices, be it all of the different, you know, clashes of stuff, the music, how the landscape comes together. So yeah, that little tidbit from GameSpace that you pulled out, Jeb, definitely seems as though they're building on that and how they want to keep realizing and pushing forward these amazing environments they do in the game.
And it fits the aesthetic of like the gothic, eerie, haunting architecture and just history of the area, which once again, I felt like we missed a bit on the live stream, but having it in writing lets your imagination just run wild with it. So that was actually a really good one to point out as well.
I might read a tiny bit of this actually, because it might help.
Reading
MMORPG.
Rainbow.
I mean, unless anyone else who reads very well wants to read it. It's
I could do the ASMR if you'd like.
oh god.
I don't know how to read.
MMORPG.com. I'm just gonna read it. They said, I mean, MMORPG.com says they spent the most time in Echovald Wilds, and I've written the least on it on the document I've written. I'm going to read a little tiny bit. We spent the most time in Echovald Wilds, and I have to say the team working on the environment and general map design have hit it out of the park with this one. Ooh, in some ways it's a bit reminiscent of my first steps into Verdant Brink. Quite cool. That's Ed Orr from no wait, sorry, who is it? It's Robin.
That's MMORPG. That's Robin.
Yeah. Verdant Brink, first walking in there, I was like, whoa, this is different. That was the first thing I thought when I went into Verdant Brink, I guess, as well. This entire forest jungle style map was once petrified by the Jade Wind, but has been returning to its nature state over time. Sadly, we didn't get to explore everything this map has to offer, but that would have taken likely multiple days of access at least. There you go. Echovald Wild. So there is I guess the feeling that this map is quite extensive, which is quite cool.
They're lucky I wasn't there because I would have been waypointing everywhere.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's
I would have run off from the group.
Yeah, then they say that they'll be exploring a lot. One of the driving forces behind how hostile Echovald Wilds felt is that it's home to a conflict between two rival gangs, one of which is the Jade Brotherhood, who seem to be the development of seem to be for the development of new Jade tech by any means necessary. Account for version of the Inquest, if you will, which actually I feel like that was a blurb that they were given because every article says that. So there was definitely a blurb from every article where it's like, they're kind of like the Inquest. Say that somewhere. Which is cool because he puts that in your mind because you know what the Inquest are kind of about. Particularly worth noting is there are a few Tengu members of the Jade Brotherhood, which is cool, which seems a bit to the contrary of what players know about the Tengu as a whole, which is true. But yeah, if there's anything in the articles that you saw, feel free to kind of point that out. But yeah, then they kind of moved on to the mission. So I don't know if we want to talk about the mission or we talk about Echovald Wilds or expectations of Echovald Wilds. We did see a little bit, and it does feel.
I'm
different.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking it. So I'm thinking of it as like the reverse of Verdant Brink, in that in Verdant Brink. Yeah, in Verdant Brink, a very vertical map, but you start at the top of it, and you don't really go down below, because when you do go down below, either there's like little secrets or you die.
Yeah.
And you go up high too, actually, in Verdant Brink. But I'm thinking more, it's like a very vertical forest map, but you start at the bottom and you see a bunch of things high above you, but like forest high above you and ruins high above you. And I think I am looking forward to climbing.
Or do you think that in that respect, when you're talking about Verdant Brink, maybe it's like Verdant Brink but turned on its head? Like, the floor is like, and you explore up and there's little secret bits up rather than... Yeah? Is that kind of saying? Okay, cool. Yeah, it does look like the floor is the place. It's definitely the base. It doesn't feel like there's a lot underneath because it's like, I guess if you're at the base of a forest, like a base of a forest is dense and packed with roots and swamp and stuff. There might be like little holes in the ground every so often, but I don't know. I don't know. Could be bollocks as well, to be fair. But like, yeah, I like the idea of that. Okay. Anyone else have anything to say?
I mean, there's a lot of history in Echovald and current things that are happening that reflect both the climate but also the different groups that came out of a lot of those conflicts in Cantha's history. Mm-hmm. So I did like just in the articles hearing talk about the different, factions that are in this area and how people actually did feel as though they were represented in such a way that there were like clear defining traits of them and certain things that they could clearly see at work and at play within the zone, and then different connections that do kind of tie them to things we already understand in the world. So I am excited to see more of Echovald because it does feel like you said, Kroof, I don't know if I felt the tantalizing lure of mystery and all of that history from what we saw in the previews that we got with the live streams, but the actual premise of the zone and all the different things within it, and even some of this narrative stuff that we got, does intrigue me. And if they had so much fun, and many people were saying, I wish we'd had more time at the end of their articles to even explore more, I feel like that's really promising that there might be a lot of things in there for us to discover. And yeah, maybe going up and sort of exploring more within that kind of realm in a reversal of what we've seen now that we have stuff like Skyscale mounts and all the other mounts. I mean, it'd be fun to kind of have them really take advantage of that.
Yeah, and especially with them bringing gliding and updrafts and raptors and springers to End of Dragons players, it gives them more freedom to design similar to Verdant Brink and Heart of Thorns areas where you do have access to like mid-levels and then top tier levels. In a perfect world, each layer would be fully realized, but you can probably have pockets similar to Verdant Brink.
So what do they say again? You get a raptor, a basic raptor, you get a glider, a basic glider. Did they say you're gonna be able to use updrafts, right? Did they say that?
I think I saw updrafts in certain screenshots.
Yeah, I don't think they said anything. I mean, if you've got a glider, I would assume that you can do the basic stuff.
Yeah, the question is, are the masteries unlocked for them, though? Like, are they able to upgrade them like you're able to upgrade your raptor or your glider? Or is it all going to be stuck at basic unless you get Path of Fire?
I mean, I guess you don't have those. That's a good point.
Basic. I think they did confirm that you can get raptor and springer and gliding right off the bat. I actually don't remember if they said updrafts. They could have.
Yeah, probably not. Probably Probably that's their way of encouraging people to go get Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire.
Yeah, those won't require masteries, but I don't think they'll be able to actually be leveled up because there wouldn't be any real use to level them up. As long as you have like the basic movements of everything, you can still pretty much make it anywhere.
Well, you can't do updrafts, right?
Probably not updrafts, but you can use your Springer to get up high.
But the Springer only goes about halfway, right? With the
You just do a bunch of ledge hopping.
Okay, all right.
I mean, well, I think that's it, isn't it? It's like that is
Incentive.
And maybe that is a sign of what you need to get access to higher points. Like, you know, whereas some mounts, I think in, you know, different areas of the game, I swear, man, these walls. it's another tap now.
Break them down.
It's so thin.
But
Yeah,
you know,
I wasn't sure about the Springer either.
with the masteries, you know, we don't know anything about the Jade stuff. Maybe there are certain things that allow you to get up higher or to, you know, move in a certain way. And I think in Echovald Wilds, we did actually see like these little small updrafts on the ground that looked like something that is interactable. So there could be things beyond actual updraft masteries and gliding masteries that you're able to, you know, have that verticality while also still incentivizing, you know, Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, actually. Without the masteries, you don't have much verticality. You still have the nice mount movement, but you don't have verticality. This brings me back to possibly our fifth mastery, which is supposed to be JTech related, right? And if you remember a while ago, in our what could possibly be coming for the expansion, I said it would be really cool is if we had a kind of Attack on Titan type of slingshotty Spider-Man webs, basically. Would that be able to be introduced as a JTech kind of situation? And
Absolutely.
yeah,
I mean, they have the Moss Heart mastery line with season 3 where it's like it's similar to.
I guess they could just add that to Echovald Forest. It's true.
Yeah. Oh, they could do that too. Reuse a Living World season 3 mastery where you like collect the Moss Heart essence to use it as a grappling hook. I love seeing like seasonal masteries be introduced in other areas. Like the Code and Flame one, rip Code as Flame. That was only in one map.
I mean, they also had with the all those crystals from the. Trying to think, it's season 2 uses them, but it's the
the Zephyrite.
The Zephyrite crystals and everything, which would make sense with some of the lore tie-in there. So, I mean, they could easily kind of do something like that and push those ideas further, or they could even maybe do something where, I mean, it depends on just how interesting they want to make this, because they could make it just map mobility specific, or they could make it certain things that like affect current stuff that you have that's everywhere, right? You could choose to enhance this mount, or you could choose to do this thing, or, you know, I don't know, maybe bulk out some sort of area of how you explore or engage with the world in a different way. Try to think of good examples of it, but yeah, where, you know, you enhance a mount and it goes further if you decide to do that, or you, you know, pick up more loot than you even could before. Those kinds of like universal masteries that maybe we could even expound on or see like new interesting stuff added in as.
I like your pick up more loot than you did before. That I like that mastery, whatever mastery that is. That's a good one.
Pick up more loot. Wow.
I love it, but I think you're onto something though, because I think we have like the only kind of information we have about the last mastery so far, and it's from a post a while back that says, shortly after we come back from our holiday break, we'll give you more information of a schedule, blah, blah, blah. While we're looking forward to the future, have you considered what Jade Tech can do for you? Soon we'll be ready to tell you all about the final End of Dragon's mastery line and its practical uses for your busy adventuring lifestyle. So yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of quality of life stuff, maybe.
Okay. I mean, I think giving you access to the mounts that you have access to is a good sign of how high things are going to be, like I said, and you know how much access newer players are going to have. I'm hoping you're going to have a new player experience with this. That's going to that is something you can start with.
Expansion?
Yeah, I think there is a little bit with that new area we saw in the city, there was something teaching about break bars, and there was some little kind of mini tutorial bits. I think if people have the option, I'm just wondering how much of the story is going to hark on the past. And that may sound ridiculously silly to say, because it obviously is, but I'm wondering how much of the story because if you play Path of Fire, for example, you don't need to really necessarily have played the previous games to understand what's going on, because Balthazar is a god. You will be more informed, obviously, but I think you could go in and kind of, he's a bad guy.
To be honest, though, yes, he's a bad guy, he's a god, but it's like, if you're dropped into Path of Fire without knowing anything about Guild Wars, and it's like, I'm just gonna go kill a god now. That's the first thing I do.
It's better than Heart of Thorns, though. But think about it. Well, if you think about any game, if you think about a single player experience, or if you think about any MMORPG, if you drop in, in Final Fantasy 14, you can go past that story and skip it. There's an assumption there that, it doesn't, I'm not saying it's the same, obviously, but
I think even God of War, where the whole point of all the video games is to kill gods, builds up to killing a god. But the Path of Fire does. You don't just go and kill a god. Well, you try to.
The story is still quite long, isn't it? It's what, 15, 20 hours?
Yeah, it's definitely more robust than Heart of Thorns. It's funny because I actually don't think Balthazar was the part of that I found confusing the first time I went through it, because I hadn't played Guild Wars 1 coming into the game at that point, so I didn't have all of the background. I played Guild Wars 2 first and then went back and did Guild Wars 1. So I didn't have any of the background understanding of Alona and everything that had happened in that region. And Joko was the one that actually ended up being the most confusing entity to me. Of course, I got the surface level stuff where I was like, okay, he's a lich, and there's a lot of Egyptian cultural themes here, and so they've built this whole thing off of undead. And I was like, that's really interesting, and I really like this concept. But Path of Fire felt more complex to me in the sense of a political climate and ongoing developing history. And they did a better job maybe of explaining the gods a little bit more than I think even Joko, because at least you get a recap a little bit as you go into various areas about them and Balthazar and all that kind of context, right? But it took me a bit to put all those pieces together. Whereas with Heart of Thorns, I did feel like the actual narrative itself was fairly straightforward in the drive that it did. And you were like, jungle dragon bad. Okay.
Fight.
Burn him. All right, fight him, whereas there's a lot more kind of political complexities in Path of Fire. But all of this to say, Cantha is a setting that also, to me, very much parallels a lot of that political climate and all kinds of stuff that added some complexity to Path of Fire, because literally, they've been cut off from everybody else. All this other stuff has happened, and a lot of that precedent was set directly in Guild Wars 1. So yes, how they cover all of this and how they introduce and communicate the history of these regions to players that are brand new, who literally have come in, who may have powered through at breakneck speed, gotten the special stuff, or if they allow players to skip directly there, right? They're going to need to set some precedent in how they cover ground with that, which again, from these articles, I feel like, but it's hard to tell because most of them were players of the game, but it does seem as though people at least were able to identify what was happening in the regions in a way that was cohesive. And with Echovald in particular, it did feel like one of the things that was really good that came out of these articles was that I got a bit more of a sense myself of exactly what was at play and how they wanted that to be sort of experienced by the players themselves.
Yeah. But I understand what you mean, Jebro. With Heart of Thorns, there was so much build up to it where it's not necessarily needed with the expansion. And I think ArenaNet does a good job at developing their expansions kind of within a vacuum. So you don't need, it just helps if you lead up to it.
You have
so
to do it that way to appeal to new players. That's kind of what I'm poking at.
Exactly. And with Path of Fire, there was, of course, I think it's because Living Royalties in 2 and 3 acted as direct bridges. And I agree that End of Dragons will probably be the expansion that requires the least amount of background, because Icebrood Saga ends with no direct line to End of Dragons. So with End of Dragons, they're able to actually create an expansion that is almost separate in a way from the past stories, where in the expansion they can catch you up and they don't need to rely on the Living World seasons to do that. And it also helps that Cantha has been closed off from the rest of the world for so many years, like 250 years plus. So it kind of is like the opportunity for us as existing Guild Wars 2 players to almost re-enter the world of Guild Wars once again, because we'll be relearning and learning the new things about the expansion zones. So this expansion, from multiple reasons of like what is actually coming with the expansion and also the narrative, this expansion seems very new player friendly, which I don't know if I would have gone with that direction with an expansion ending a story. But we'll see how it turns out. Maybe we'll still, as veterans, be like, oh, this feels even better because we've been around.
Well, we're going to be coming on to what the veterans kind of expect and want and desire as we go through the kind of articles as well, because I think there's different expectations. And I know like as content creators yourselves, and as now everyone is streaming to some degree Guild Wars 2 each week, and you may have had these questions yourself. Most of the time the question is, do I boost? Do I, what do I do? What do I do? Where's Endgame? What am I doing? And people, they kind of assume that in Guild Wars 2 as well, specifically, like, the Endgame is the latest expansion, whereas you could say that if you've got Heart of Thorns, that could be one of the end games if you're into raiding. If you got Path of Fire, there's other raids as well. So it really it's kind of interesting depending on which expansion you've got. And they do have to be thinking about, the previous Living World episodes as well, and selling those for gems. So there is always going to be like, we have to link it to the expansion because it would be silly not to, obviously, because we want to have this ongoing story. But for new players that come in that don't know the story, they can then go to the gem store and hopefully ArenaNet, this is something that is on the day, you can get, or they should have done this with the expansion. There should have been a deal with the expansion. I'm going to say it right now. And Rook's nodding. Thank you. And thank you, Kroof.
I thought this too.
Like, please input every single Living World story episode from the last season, at the very least, so that people can understand what the hell's going on. And so you've got the option, or at least some kind of recap for people. Like at least that, I don't know.
There has to be at some point, right? Because here's the thing, talking about should End of Dragons have been new player friendly, which is a whole, like, oh my gosh, that's a whole other thing that we can get into.
We're going to redo that podcast when the End of Dragons has been out for a bit. We'll do it each year.
I mean, I think that more than ever at the end of a 10-year story arc, but particularly given the current context of the MMO exodus out of WoW, like there has been such a shift in the MMO scene in the last couple years where many people or many companies or many games that may have been overshadowed so directly by these domineering presences, particularly of World of Warcraft, but other MMOs as well, are finally actually getting enough traction as a wider audience and more people are being brought into these games and more people are looking for options that are unique or doing something different or breaking the mold as opposed to just reiterating the mold over and over. So when it comes to these kinds of things, I think that it's so important to view something like a capstone expansion as literally being the gateway to the next thing, right? Because like you are shutting the doors. I mean, not really, it's an ongoing narrative, but like you're wrapping up, you're closing one thing, but people will just think that stuff is dead and that's it and it's done. But it's actually a great opportunity to open a different door for new players who might not have been there from the beginning and to say, here is all this stuff that you can enjoy and love. Here is something brand new on the horizon that you can get engaged with. And like that right now we've seen in other MMOs has led to explosive populations because of so many other things that have again paved the way forward for a whole new crowd of players coming into even well-established games, to get into it, enjoy what's already there, and then look forward to a fresh horizon. So I think, yes, this absolutely is a good time and a great time to look at how do we make this as accessible as possible, because more eyes than ever on MMOs right now. But with all of that context and with everything said, if your major story arc is about dragons and centers around a dragon that you literally meet and encounter and get the egg for in a living season, then you have to make it so that the story of that dragon is an intrinsic part of the experience of playing this game. And like, if that means that, yes, there is the bare bones version of this game and it very clearly says, like, doesn't include living seasons, which will then need to be purchased with money for additional bonus story content or something, then that's fine. But there needs to be a version of this game out there that you literally look at it and it's like, this is the complete pack. It's the entire dragon story, and you get it all if you pay $15 more or whatever. You know what I mean? Because players are far more likely to do that in one fell swoop as they are clicking that purchase button than they are to realize retroactively that there was stuff that they missed. But then why does it feel like they don't know these characters? But then who was, there were what are living seasons? Now I have to pay for them? What? I bought the game already. Like, yeah.
I think that would have been a great thing.
Sorry, go for it.
I was, when they first announced the sales, I was really hoping that within like the mid or the final tier of what you could purchase, they would include season 2, 3, 4, and Icebreed Saga.
Or even just have a bump up cost, like even for a bit more. Like add $10 on. Just
because
add $10.
the final package you can get, it just gives you 4,000 gems, which is nice, and you could purchase the seasons with that. But like, I don't know if you're new, you're like, what are gems? It's kind of a thing where it's like, oh, I'm just getting gems. But if you also got the guarantee of you getting all the Living World seasons along with it, that might be, could have been a nice thing.
It's difficult, maybe. Yeah, because because vets would have gone for it and they would have been like, oh, well, I've already got it, so what's the value? Like, you'd have to have an alternative option.
I mean, we'd still be just getting the 4,000 gems.
You know what, people? Oh, sorry, I thought you meant like including the Living World with the 400 gems. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Apparently everyone's having showers like throughout the entire stream.
It's only 1:40.
Are you serious?
Everyone coming back from the gym?
Over there, I don't know, maybe old baths or something, and there's just permanent water going. Let's maybe go back to the articles as well. I mean, this is the thing. I think we still got all of this stuff in our heads, but I mean, it's quite good that these articles are bringing up these different things. We barely touched it, to be honest. But I'm just gonna quickly go through this. Yeah, and we will. I know chat and everyone's probably thinking about World of Warcraft and Microsoft buying them as well, buying Blizzard, which is another big deal. Because now they've got 2 huge MMOs under their belts. It's like, yep, we've got Elder Scrolls Online, and now we've got World of Warcraft, 2 of the biggest MMORPGs, which are probably going to be under Game Pass. But
that's an entirely different conversation.
It is.
Honestly.
I mean, I want to talk about that, but that will be another podcast.
But we didn't get into Siege Turtle. So we were talking about the stuff with Echovald Wild, but then there's lots of details with the actual Siege Turtles and the mission that a lot of media tour people got to do on this. So how was that? How was that transition, Jebro?
You're wonderful. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to read a little bit of a different article. Let me go and read Ed's. Is it Ed's from GameSpace? I think. Actually, no. Yeah, he did. It was on GameSpace. I thought he stood right for MMORPG actually. But anyway. Okay. So they got on the. What was the event actually called? Did they tell us the event name? Is it just Aspenwood for Aspenwood
Vengeance, or the Gods' Vengeance?
Okay.
Oh.
They said the event. Well, that was like the weapon. The main thing. So I imagine the event would be something along like the God's Vengeance or reaching the temple. I don't know.
So there's turrets generators in this event, and the siege turtles are going to destroy them. And that's what their siege turtles do mostly. It's interesting to see whether or not that would, because we were talking earlier about whether or not you have to, I think Boots mentioned this, if you have to be on the turtles to destroy the turrets and stuff. Do you think that's something they're going to do?
Kind of sounds like they said that, yeah. Are they going to do a lot of it? I hope they do. Yeah, I hope they do a good amount, actually. Yeah.
That's what I want Siege Turtles to kind of stay in. I don't want Siege Turtles to be a truly combat-focused experience. I want it to be something that is incorporated in combat, like breaching a wall or destroying a shield generator or powering something with the Jade missiles that you shoot at. But Elite Specs, I think, still need to find their niche of being the main source of like off-mount combat. But there will be NPCs, as they mentioned in some of the articles, so it's not like if you don't have Siege Turtles, you can't do this event, which will be good.
Yeah, I assume it's going to be set up somewhat similarly to like, the way the other mounts work with, a portal for the Jackal and a wall that a beetle could break through and stuff like that, but specifically designed for shooting at.
Okay, I'm going to read the rest of this bit. Yay, no one's having a shower now. The cannons mounted to the back of our rides helped us cut down the turrets and generators, which is what I mentioned before, giving us a glimpse of how the Siege Turtles will be useful throughout End of Dragons as the game's newest PvE mount. Once through the forward set of obstacles, Fort Aspenwood unfolds into a maze of monstrous mutations. Interesting. Wildlife changed by Jade experiments, gargantuan and aggressive animals are just a sample of what the Jade Brotherhood is capable of. I guess that's all the things they're testing the Jade on and whatnot. And the first course in a mission that ends up in front of the God's Vengeance. A super weapon of immeasurable power originally designed by the Kurzik master architect Gunther. Despite only being tourists in this new world, we pushed on to a relatively direct smash and grab experience that destroyed this construction and hopefully put an end to the Jade Brotherhood's intention for the wilds. As a good roundup. The grand chests that dropped along the way were just an added bonus. Okay, nice loot as well. They took about. I didn't talk much more about the actual stuff. They kind of go on to strike missions quite quickly. I don't know if there's anything else to mention. It's an event, I guess.
I always think because it's green, but also because they use it as an energy source, et cetera, I always think of whenever it's Jade tech, whenever it's this Dragon Jade, I always think of it as like uranium from video games. It's like it's
radiation.
Yeah. I'm serious. Because also with the Harbinger, right? It's using the Jade and poisoning people because of it. So I think of it as like uranium essentially. So I'm wondering if this God's Judgment secret weapon is an atomic bomb.
Probably. They mentioned like you have to stop it before it destroys the entire forest.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It probably is something that's more of like a ticking time bomb that's, gone out of control. But in the article, they talk about creatures and animals, and we have yet to see Jade touched creatures and biological constructions. Instead of just golems that the mechanists develop, we haven't seen that more wildlife that's like been corrupted, but we have seen some concept art of it. If you recall, on the official End of Dragons launch page, the strike mission image actually has this like giant, almost Cthulhu-esque wiggly monster thing, and people were like,
Cthulhu-esque wiggly monster thing.
It just looks like a blubberous amalgamation, and it looks really eerie, and there's like jade aspects to it or glows, and people were like, what is that? Are like the afflicted back? But if they are doing research on animals, maybe they are creating these like large Goliath monstrosities that look Cthulhu-esque, like old gods. So that I kind of made that connection. I was like, oh, maybe that's what we were seeing when we saw that little image of the strike mission.
Well, that's probably what happened with the Jade Maw, right?
Oh, the Jade Maw could be. Well, the Jade Brotherhood, I think, is relatively new. So I don't know. And the Jade Maw.
No, but I'm thinking that maybe the Jade Maw wasn't always a tentacle monster. Maybe.
But the fractal, I think, is about like. I think the fractal. The timelines in the fractals are always weird. Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything
I
else?
know.
to
I
say
know
on
they.
that?
I know in the. Sorry. I know in the Jade Quarry, in that map, in the Jade Seed, the Jade Quarry, they showed the Jade Maw there as something you fight. So it exists still. I think it's not just in the fractals. Yeah.
Okay. Either way, I think we should move on to the discussion about strikes. And I sound excited, kind of semi, but also at the end of that word, I didn't sound excited. It kind of went off into maybe for several reasons, but also excitement and confusion, I think. For me personally, and maybe for others. We had a little bit of a talk about it before the stream started. So, maybe we'll talk about guild halls and fishing first. Let's do that, and then we can move on to strikes, and people can be like, "Oh, they're gonna talk about this. Cool, I'm gonna start listening." And destroyed your dreams. I'm sorry.
I'm looking at the picture that Kroof was referring to now. That reminds me more of like the Deimos, right? Because of all the arms. It's like a jade demon, it looks like.
Kind of. Deimos's arms were just wrapped around his neck, and they're more human-like. But I can see that. Yeah.
They were popping out. Yeah. Popping out all over the shop. Okay, they looked at the guild hall. They didn't really talk about it much. They said they were like, I think one comment from Enemy was about the guild halls led by some audibly excited ArenaNet developers. So they were very excited, and that is good. I love that they're, obviously people are excited about their work, but ArenaNet more so, we see it on their faces. And it says that there was an interesting comment here on GameSpace. It said, rather than throw wave after wave of destruction at players, End of Dragon's new guild hall weaves in a series of encounters that can be either individually overcome or simultaneously taken down. So you can solo this potentially. So it looks like it's like based on how many people are there.
They said it was a direct response to the fact that they've gotten a lot of feedback that smaller guilds or smaller groups of people weren't always able to easily do that and capture the guild halls. And that some people found it very frustrating. And they were, in a couple of the articles, I think they mentioned, rather than having to wait around and beg strangers to help you with it and jump in to help you capture this, they now made it so that you can go in and capture this one in different ways, which is really great. And I hope that we see that maybe same system adapted for each of the other guild hall missions, because I think that is something that could make it more flexible for players of varying guild sizes who might want to just hang out with their friends, or they might want to start building up their own guilds from scratch.
True.
Anything else?
I second the opinion.
Does anyone care about guild hall? Guild hall is like a big thing for anyone, specifically? Is anyone really excited for guild halls?
It would be a big thing if they were a big thing.
Yeah, it would be a big thing if they're big things. Good point.
I mean, I will be the positive voice here in that we had our whole guild hall episode, right? And I totally agree that there are so many ways that I think they can keep making guilds and guild halls actually more relevant and more intrinsic. But I actually really like guild halls, and I am really excited for this one. I think the functionality in the hub is so fun. I think it allows players an opportunity to, celebrate their own achievements or to get various buffs and boons to show the time investment, the energy that they've poured into it, as well as just I don't know, I just think it's a fun feature. People can create their own content in there too with things like jump puzzles. And it's really the only facet of player housing, if you will, that we have currently that can be freely decorated. So I do really enjoy what they bring to the table. I heard in a couple of these articles as well that this one is supposed to have a lot of water. So I'm wondering if there will be I don't know, some special fishing spots and stuff where you can just go hang out. And,
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what they have. They have that. So yeah,
I think if they're not going to do guild missions, I would like to see more guild hall events, dynamic events that pop up in the guild hall every week or so, like a fishing event or something similar to a bounty from Path of Fire, where a deep sea creature comes on the shore, like a Naga priest comes on the shore, and you have to defend this little area to then kill it, and you can gain guild rewards and all that stuff. So I think if they're not going to do missions having a couple of dynamic events that, every once in a while pop up in the guild hall on a weekly rotation
For sure,
would
that
be
you can
something that's
activate.
cool.
Yeah.
Because it gives you more of a reason to go back there. If you're not big into decoration like I am, then, you need to have something to draw you back there.
I'm looking forward to it because it's pretty.
I am too. It is very beautiful.
But
Yeah,
like,
like, I mean,
yeah, that's
all
true.
the other guild halls are nice, but I don't know if they're my aesthetic, and I think this will be my aesthetic, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Path of Fire
honestly,
one's
I am with Kroof though that I would go for it right away if I had a reason to do a lot of things with guilds more. But
yeah, I like Brimstar's comment in the chat. It was very funny. It made me chuckle. Pardon me. Guild Wars 2 and Guild Halls, a relationship that got to the point where they're just perfect roommates, but no longer in love. And you just keep living together, and then you just friends, and you just get on, and you're like, well, I mean, to be fair, they could be really good friends, but they've just got to, at that point, admit that it's over.
I just feel like guild halls always are unfortunate when you look at the development and money that gets put into developing these really large maps and systems, and then it never goes anywhere, which I think is unfortunate. It almost feels like a waste. It almost feels like a waste.
Sorry.
But in terms of like a game system, like if they never did other guild halls, I think even a smaller population than compared to raids would be upset. Because I don't know
they've set
don't
a
know
precedent.
how many people.
They set a precedent, didn't they? They had the reason they built a Greek guild hall was because they had to. They had to make one. Because it's like every I think the expectation.
Because they have Arborstone. I mean, they don't need guild halls if they have Arborstone.
That's true. That's true. But like is that the case?
I mean,
it's not the same thing at all.
It essentially more people are in Eye of the North, I think, than are consistently in guild halls.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels to me like if you're going to do another guild hall, right, and you haven't like also released ongoing content for guild halls, that's where we get to the point where it's like, yes, I think you could stop doing them, and there probably would be a lot of people who would be just fine with the ones that are already in the game. Or even if rather than creating a whole new guild hall for this one, although of course there was a lot of precedent and a lot of hype with the fact that, back in Guild Wars 1, a lot of the locations, and there was a guild hall in Guild Wars 1 that was in Cantha too, right?
Wait, sorry, what did you say?
Wasn't there? There was a guild hall in Guild Wars 1 that was Cantha based? I mean, there was definitely a place where you could have a zoo.
I don't know. Actually.
I remember that.
I was in the guild, and
my guild hall was the one that had the Elonian, like the blue and the it was the
I see
one.
People saying there was one. And I know a lot of people are probably looking forward to having something like that again. But it does feel like if you're going to introduce this as a feature, being able to fish in it is great. But again, there needs to be some kind of thing, right? Like, and guild, like there's a new guild hall and we have a new slew of guild missions, or, they could have even been like Cantha specific ones or dynamic events. Like from here on out, dynamic events will pop up in these guild halls, and we added new rewards. We added like whatever it was. It didn't have to be massive, but it could have been something that again is expanding and updating what guild halls do in relation. Now, I mean, of course, this is all within the context that I think there are many other games that do some kind of company house or guild hall that can be appointed that don't have even a fraction of the features that Guild Wars 2 already does for these. But I think you have to lean one way or the other, right? You either have to just be like, okay, what we already have is what we have, and this isn't something that we want to keep developing, or you have to commit to it being a cornerstone feature of your game and constantly look for ways to like continue to use this as a billing point or like a selling point to go up on the billboard for your game. Like if you're going to do all this time in this guild hall, even if they just like increased the cap of various furnishing items you could have within a square, or like they added in some new collaborative system or something, something that again would feature this as more than just a cool place that you and your guild can hang out. Because I don't even know, I again really like guild halls, but I don't know how many people do get massively engaged with going back there for various reasons.
No one does really, do they? I mean, the only reason I go to guild halls, the guild halls, one of the best things about guild halls is the bonuses you get from reward track, like experience, PvE experience, world v world experience, that 10%. That's the one main reason I would say that most people probably want to get their guilds up to the higher level and for like tavern stuff. And obviously, like, there are people, I mean, Rita, who one of our awesome mods, does like a lot of the scribing stuff, and they, you know, that costs a shitload. And but you know, the reason it costs so much is that not a lot of people are doing it, probably, because they don't need to, because guild halls, like, you know, and you can make awesome trophies and stuff like that. But I think what they did was they missed something here with guild halls, is that, and I think you're right, you know, they need to bring the guilds into Ender Dragons. They really need to bring it. And like, you know, the guild hall is one way of doing that, but like I said, no one really engages in it. But like, fishing is the literal best way to bring it. It's the most casual experience you can have and it will be very literally you're just sitting there pressing a couple of buttons every so often with other people in a place which is completely safe, and there's no one else, there's no players, there's no mobs to mess with you. And it could have been just like, you know, fish to feed the guild hall this week and get some experience, or get some tokens, or get some stuff towards brand new guild armor and stuff. Because in Heart of Thorns, didn't they add new guild?
They did.
Armor?
I was going to mention that too. Like, there has everything that has been introduced to guilds were introduced 6 years ago, and that was it. So there hasn't been.
It's almost 7.
There hasn't been any. There hasn't been even like more guild armors or guild weapons you can get. And I think factions can't. Factions is the perfect thing. You have a full armor set based off of the houses.
And alliances. Like, that's the most. Your guild is literally the most.
Or the Kurziks or the Luxons and all that stuff. You could really play off of this, because the factions campaign was like so much about who is your family and who are you siding with, almost like a guild. Who is your guild? Who are you siding with? And because there's like 5 different guilds like that you can be in, maybe your guild could ally themselves with like the Kurziks or the Luxons, and then you can, through there, with that guild, you get the certain weapons and armors from them. I don't know. There's so many guild halls, I think, have a lot of untapped potential. Visually, they are great, but I think it is ultimately a waste in production money and time. Because there's nothing that comes with it.
It does feel like that, actually, because it feels like that could have, rather than going for, because, you know, in Elder Scrolls Online, someone said it in chat as well, in Elder Scrolls Online, the housing system is amazing, but they don't have guild halls. There is no guild hall. You have to assign someone. What someone does is they have their own house. You all pitch in together. You buy that house, and everyone you just assign decorators. And that's what you do. They could have just done I mean, this is going way off again, because this is what we do. And we're going to go back to the article in a sec, but like, I really feel like they could have just had some kind of player housing in our instances, just screwed away with the whole guild hall system, and everyone would have just, it would be much better. But then someone else said in the chat as well, you know, they want more people in the world, so they don't want guild halls to appeal to you going back there every day. But then it's counterintuitive to what it is, and it doesn't make any sense. So maybe, you know, it's then more about trying to. The reason why housing is so big, and the reason why housing was brought into games in the first place was, you know, because people like building, and also people can make money very easily through that system. Like, it's just like, it's such a good way to make money. Like, they literally sell you chairs that you sit on in the game. Like, if they haven't got the net about this right now, like, people want to buy stuff like that, and they will do. And I think, you know, I mean, personal housing, it's got to come at some point. But anyway, that's another conversation.
Yeah, I agree that we probably should have seen some other kind of features. I think the main point here being tying this into the articles and the media release for this, right, is that I did actually find myself kind of going, oh, I'm surprised that they took them to the guild hall, because I thought if this was really a major thing they wanted to showcase, that there would have been some sort of major news about that. And really the main news that we got was essentially that they have scaled this guild hall so that no matter the size of your guild, you can access it and get it, which is important to know and is something that's put out there. But again, does it stand on its own as an entire feature for something that you would want people to be putting out there? I don't know. I mean, I see in chat great ideas. What if there was a guild aquarium and you could catch fish and then you could put them on display in there and they'd swim around? Like, what if they even treated it, they had some whole new section of it, some whole new upgradable wing that got added to all the different guild halls, where you could do natural collections, kind of like the museum in Animal Crossing, or you could all bring stuff back and then you'd have this whole place you could display stuff or get more harvesting nodes or have fish in or like populate the waters of your guild halls. And all of the guild halls got water elements added. So like now you could populate them with different fish you wanted to catch, or you could try to get some special fish, or we talked about everything, the dynamic events, possible additional guild missions. The alliances feel like such a great thing to integrate. Like, what if there's something, a whole new set of achievements and rewards and things that can go into your guild hall if you're representing an alliance and you do a bunch of world versus world? What if they added in a whole bunch of other new achievements that if you do as a guild, repping as a guild, like we've talked about, even using old bounty boards or other missions, or just things that they would be appropriate in content that's just already in the game. But if you do it as a guild and you choose at the start or whatever to do it all as repping that particular guild, then you can come back to the guild hall and you'll have new upgrades or new stuff, right? So I think the main thing with this is that it's really nice, convenience-wise, that now people can get this guild hall, but it is only this guild hall. And there's no other new features that, are being implemented, nor are all of the guild halls getting the scalable, as far as we know, accessibility. So again, this might have been one area that I like to hear about it because I like guild halls personally. But like I said, I also acknowledge that there's so much more room for them to actually make this a feature of the game. Otherwise, Kroof, I agree with you. Do away with it and give everybody individual personalized housing. It could be an apartment in Xingje for all. It doesn't have to be a whole map. You know what I mean? But like, I would almost rather see them do away with this entirely and focus their efforts on something that far more of the player base will use, or turn it into a draw that makes everyone want to engage with it. Otherwise, I just don't know. You're right. I don't know if it necessarily justifies the ongoing development, even if it is beautiful. And I know there's so much work that went into that like, is so they deserve to be proud of.
But that's the thing. It gets like, literally, as you were talking, I was thinking like, people get to enjoy this. Maybe a handful of people get to enjoy this a lot, like, and they go back there. But like, then you're thinking like, what could that time have gone into? And then you think, I don't know. It's just okay. Let's go back to the article. Yeah, very good points, Rook, and everyone. I really think player housing you would have such a big, huge community around that. You can imagine the kind of streams you could have on Guild Wars because they do the art stream and everything else. You could have housing competitions. It would bring so much content to the game, and it's an end game where the only way it ends or finishes, it's so creative that depending on what they put into the game and what's already in the game, people are still creating stuff now like racetracks and everything else. And there's additional stuff which other MMOs don't even have, like roller beetles and mounts where you can get to different points and you can place things. So it's like there's so much potential, and it does feel like it's kind of been squandered a little bit. But it's easy for us to say. We don't know how easy it is to design and the systems and everything else. So we're just talking critically. And I think that's okay. What else was there? Let me say, in opinion, Camp Guild Hall is easily the most beautiful and detailed one to date. Massively OP. The Guild Hall is actually on the old site of Xingje Arena, where the final battle against Minister Reiku took place in Guild Wars faction. Very cool. Massively OP. And then you can use skiffs and you can fish as well in the guild hall. They didn't mention much about skips. So they talked about the bonus speed and stuff you can get when you use the emotes, which was quite cool. Something for fishing as well. There's a quote here from Jessica, our good friend Jessica from .esports, said fish can also be used for new cooking recipes, which could result in one of the meta recipes, including an ingredient only obtained by fishing. Super rare fish will also be an ingredient to forge the new legendary weapons as well.
That was surprising to me a little bit, actually.
That was good.
That's
Yeah, I
a
like
big piece of news, because I think they hinted towards it. And I'm wondering.
That's a good way. Okay, so when we were first talking about fishing, I think we were wondering the economy for fishing. How would it work, right? Like, yeah, you want to go fishing, but what's the incentive of going fishing? Obviously, selling those fish, using it in cooking. So does that mean that the cooking is going to be that much better than the cooking you currently have? Is it going to be recipes that are like fantastic that you really want to go fishing for? Well, maybe, but also it seems they're putting into legendary crafting. So there's the answer right there. That's how you make the economy for fishing work.
Well, Boots, do you know how they did ascended numbers? They pushed the numbers up to 500, right? Do you think they're going to push it up to 600?
For cooking?
Yeah. What do you think?
No,
No?
I don't.
I don't see why not. At this point, numbers are arbitrary. Like with the level
you
cap.
know what? That's a good point, Kroof. Numbers are arbitrary. Yeah.
It really is meaningless. Like you don't have to have a stat increase. It just could be a.
It's a question. Yeah, it's just a question.
Because
Why not? Why not go to 600?
Masteries, you're already up to like 400 at this point. It's like it's just a number.
Yeah.
You might as well have to where you have to level it up to actually train in the cooking of Canthan.
Again, it's that horizontal progression, isn't it, rather than the vertical, which is what they like. They like that horizontal.
But does that mean we're gonna get legendary food?
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
legendary
maybe.
snack.
Can you imagine if you got a legendary oven?
No, it would be a legendary jade microwave.
Oh, what? Sorry?
Perfect.
It'd be a microwave.
A legendary microwave?
There are microwaves in Canthan
Jade
now.
waves. Jade
Gamma
waves.
waves.
Yeah.
I'm a legendary. Yeah, thanks, reader.
Amazing. Yeah, so that's quite cool. I like the idea of the legendary weapon, the fish going towards that. I guess I'm just thinking, what from a fish would go in a weapon?
Like scales. Or like
the scales.
Just like you fish like a giant like underwater creature that's akin to like a dragon, and you just like take its scales and you take its like whiskers and you like sap the essence and the magic of it to infuse it into your legendary or whatever. Like go wild, go fantastical with it. It's a fantasy game.
And I mean, depending on what they want to do with like tying together, I don't know, magic and all kinds of stuff, right? Like water a lot of times is correlated to some kind of medium that like, whether you use electricity, right? And like electricity and water, it carries through, right? But in terms of magical stuff, a lot of times water also can sort of have that correlation. The Jade Sea itself was once water. So yeah, they could easily be like water concentrates various magical energies, and now this is a super dope magic fish that's in here, and you're gonna squeeze all its magic juice out and put it in a sword, you know?
I mean, I'm looking at articles, I'm just looking at stuff, and someone's like glycerin extracted from fish oil we use a number of industrial processes, including production of explosives. In March 1941, one of the British commando raids was mounted on the... Wow, this is some really big history about fish stuff. But like scales, poison, like globule, whatever things from like pufferfish, other stuff like scales, shark teeth.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, like there's loads of stuff.
There's swordfish.
Yeah.
I mean, you could use, I guess.
And you maybe mentioned a while back.
I don't know, maybe.
You maybe mentioned this a while back, Boots, but I would love the idea of like a bunch of people fishing in a location and then like an underwater boss spawns and you have to kill that to then get the materials. Or it's just like, I had seen a video on World of Warcraft where that was a part of a dungeon where they fished, and if you fished, then the boss, it was a secret boss. And like these little things like that are just fun to pepper in these contents, especially underwater. Because underwater,
Speaking of underwater, two things. One that we don't have to talk about, are we going to get underwater legendaries based after the sea dragon? Nope. And number two is... And number two, well, why not? Because they
I think they confirmed that they're not doing underwater weapons in the legendary.
All right, sure. Number two is, are we ever going to see the Largos again?
Is that a
I want
conversation for
Largos.
this podcast?
That's a good
Why not?
future expansion.
Maybe.
That's a
Maybe.
future expansion because I've been playing through. I just finished Zaitan and being around Saya Al Rajid, the Largos that we meet in the personal story. I was like,
Yeah, I
There's
remember
so-
that very well.
there's so much like that you can explore with this race that is like literally one of the most unknown facets of Tyria. And there's like they're underwater amphibians. I would love to see their models be updated because they just look like blue humans, but you can really go like aquatic and give them gills and more scales, and they could even be a playable race more than Tengu.
Or maybe you can fish
Largos.
them up and use them for legendary weapons.
There you go. Largos wings.
You know, clip their
Lagos
wings.
weapons.
Oh, so sad.
The Lagos sets. Oh, amazing. That would be so good. I
That'd be
like
really good.
Rook's face when I said that.
I would love more Largos for a future expansion.
I mean, we've already got the Quaggan in a tank for the shield. I mean, we might as well go for the Lagos as well. I mean, let's just go there. It's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say most of the fishing information we got was pretty much stuff we already knew about, except
Yeah.
for that quote. And they talked about how fun it is to all go together and use the emotes and how relaxing it is to fish together, and all of that I'm happy about because honestly, I do think fishing looks like it's going to be really fun. I think it was a great addition. I think it's one of the big selling points of this expansion, in addition to just the other stuff. But like, this is a new thing that I was so excited about. So between fishing and
Yeah.
skip, I think honestly it's a great thing to add to this world, and especially open world content.
Do you think there will be able to be an AFK fishing farm?
Someone will code it.
It'll be a
Yeah.
possible macro, but it's a mini game specifically. So you
Yeah,
have
exactly.
to hit,
So it might be
a
difficult.
mark. So I don't think you can unless it's
Unless you
predictable.
code it, or someone like does an
I
add-on
mean,
to code it.
you can do it
know.
so they press the buttons and it just presses it every so often. You get very lucky, but I
All
don't
the
know.
all the bots have left Guild Wars 2, but maybe they're going to come back just to fish.
Maybe.
They're
Who
gonna
knows?
inflate the
With
fishing market.
legendary, if there's legendary weapons, like if there's someone, will probably find a way. Legendary weapons. Okay, let's go on to legendary weapons. There
I
are
loved this section.
there are 6, and if there is anything specific, please bring it up. I do have a little bit of I have some images, which is cool. So
Finally.
I'm gonna there are 16 weapons with 6 legendary variations, creating a total of 96 different weapon models. 90. This is what I was talking about earlier. 96 different legendaries. January, not much going
That is
on.
quite a lot.
Only previews of the Great Sword have been released for the sets, 5 sets inspired by the other Elder Dragons, Zaitan Modromorph, Krakatoric Jormag, and Primordus. These variations will not be available on release day for End of Dragons. There is no specified date for when they were released to the game. For now, the developers have stated that the variations will be available to obtain after launch. And that is from Jessica
Sounds like
from
maybe with
Esports.
Living World.
I expect Living World, yeah. That'd be smart.
Potentially, but this is what they did with Heartthorn's legendaries as well. They kind of just slowly released some, and then it was like, no, we can't do it anymore. But like, anyway.
One thing I saw that was really nice is that another one of the articles, one of the first couple that we looked at, we don't have the quote right here, but one of the articles did say that you won't have to like make every single one from scratch. It sounds like there's going to be some kind of journey you can take to attune the weapon to the different aspects and unlock the other cosmetic iterations of that weapon. So that is really nice, and
Yes.
I am absolutely obsessed with these. I love them. The Aurene ones are even more sparkly and even more rainbow. Apparently, they also even make your footsteps rainbow. I am so ready for this. I need every single one.
And Crystal Explosion on kill.
That's cool. That is cool.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad we actually got to see more legendary Aurene weapons other than the Great Sword and the daggers. Because I don't know why we never saw them during the actual live stream before they went on break. But it's good that we're actually getting to see more of the weapons this time around. And I love the staff. I already made Nevermore, so
Yeah,
I'm
staff
not going
looks
to be
good.
going for the staff. I'm going to probably go for the Great Sword. But if I have spare time, I might go for the staff. And
I
the
will
hammer,
say-
oh, so good.
I will say that this does confirm that this is as close as we're ever going to get to getting dyeable weapons in Guild Wars 2.
Yes. Oh no, not Brimstar. Kroof, how do you feel about Rainbow? Okay. Not a fan of Rainbow.
Kroof. No.
I know. But I saw the rifle shot and there was a rainbow burst out of the barrel. It wasn't speaking to me. I think rainbow as a color scheme looks weird to my eyes. It's a lot going on. However, I do think the weapons themselves look really good, and they don't have like Bifrost level of just like
But look at this
rainbow
one.
excellence. Yeah, no. I mean,
this
it's
one.
not as bad as Bifrost. Not as bad as Bifrost. I'll say that. Not as bad as Bifrost.
That's very rainbowy.
I love it.
I feel like I'm looking at a Crayola crayon box.
The entire box. That's the staff. Staff looks good.
Oh, the staff, actually, that's why it's, I think, one of my favorites, because it's like, from the animation, the spell effect, it looks like a very muted, similar to the actual legendary amulet you can get from doing the season return achievements. I
Yeah.
like it because it isn't like super vibrant. It's very subtle and like elegant. So I
Was
like
it, Kroof, was it you that brought it up to me when we were comparing the new legendaries
Yes.
and possibly some old? Okay,
that.
yeah.
No, wait, what were you asking? I don't know what you're
Oh,
sometimes
no,
I just say
It's just like a Jormag themed axe versus Frostfang. And then
oh, that would be different.
and then yeah, Aurene staff versus Bifrost. It's just like, but now these guys have kill animations, but the old ones don't have kill animations. It's just like an upgraded reset.
I mean, hey, they
Situation.
keep raising the bar. In the legendary department, it does seem like they have continually upgraded their game from like the second generation having very awesome quest lines, the third generation hopefully all having, you know, the same but good quest line, and then variations that come after that. But now that we have this added cool effect of the kill effect, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's always nice touches. Jebro has left us, so it's like, where do we go from here?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
guess we just talk about totally inappropriate things.
Ooh, knees.
Do you want to talk about butts?
Okay.
I don't know. That's so scandalous.
I just look behind me, make sure nobody is listening.
Do you want to
about
see my
butt talk.
ankle?
Oh no, not on the stream. No,
Not
Kroof.
the ankle.
It's
I've
too
got,
much. I'm gonna get banned.
I've got no.
Oh
Not the
God.
You actually
It's okay.
did it.
It's okay. It's probably not going to show up on stream because
It probably won't
wait, hold
actually,
on.
right?
You can't
just barely.
show your feet
Ugh.
on a live stream.
Not the
It's
foot.
just because Jebro, for some reason, have you guys noticed that Jebro zooms my camera
And mine
in
too.
and like stretches it weirdly, I think, but everybody else looks good and I'm just like fuzzy.
Mine is very narrow, so I have to like kind of crouch down. Hi,
Yeah.
Jebro. Welcome
Sorry about
back.
that.
How do you feel about the legendary weapons? Like, we had a really good conversation when you were
There
gone.
was like, there was just a massive knock on my door, and it was just like, okay, what's going on? The water's wearing off. and
up!
They just started drilling. Oh,
Was that the
I hate this
FBI? That
flipping
sounds just like the FBI.
living here sometimes. It's always Fridays where something goes. I should just change the day. It's like they have to do stuff on a Friday. Yeah, they're cool. I think that I think it was funny because we actually, as one of the border fun, because every single month I have like a big. We have these unlocks for depending on goals we get, and one of them was like, we're going to decide a legendary to make, and it will be streamed. And it was like based on the fact that I wasn't like massively excited about like the Aurene weapons as an engineer for a mace. And I was like, because I'm not sure about mace, like rainbow mace, like jade and all that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, okay, maybe Moot's going to be better because it was cool. And I was like, it's still kind of rainbowy, but it's just cooler. It's like a dance floor, you know, that follows you from behind. That's really rad. And then they came out with the other stuff, and I'm like, oh crap. Now I kind of want those. And like, I kind of want those, but also as an engineer, I think I might end up going for something for one of my other characters. It's interesting because you always think, do I want to have the parts like the dragon themed weapons for my characters, like what are they more of? And I like the kind of steampunk aesthetic for like a lot of my characters. So the dragon weapons don't work as well, but then I would have characters that are more fire oriented. Like I have made a flamethrower engineer who has like fire and different fire parts and like creatures that's part of them, and it looks very cool. So I'm like, okay, so I can get like maybe a rifle, but then I've got Predator, which is very fire oriented. So it's like, oh, well, maybe I'll get like, I don't know. So I think I'm going to make. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, I just got the crossbow pistols from the Black Lion chest. So I'm like, they're pretty cool and they're pretty rare as it is. And it's like, I think I will make characters around the legendaries that look the coolest. But then here's a question. How long until they come out? The variations, because it's the variations that I want. But for like Rook, obviously, like day one, that's going to be something. The face change.
Lucky.
It's going to be a thing where it's like, oh yeah, I kind of want that. So it's like, how long is it going? So there's a couple of questions that go with this. How long are they going to be released by set, or is it going to be by weapon?
You know, it'd be interesting.
What?
If you have to play the story step. Like, I don't know. Okay, they're gonna release it by set. Probably it's gonna be all Zaitan first, and then all Morgemoth, and then all. I think it'd be interesting if they make you defeat the dragon in the story step with the weapon that you have.
Oh.
You mean
That'd
with
be
the
very
base
RPG aspects.
Oh, so do you think that we have to make the Aurene legendary and then you get skins then? Or do you think you can make a base and then get the skin that you want?
I think you make the Aurene is the base.
Is it
that's my guess. Yeah, that's my guess.
We don't know that though, right?
No, Aurene is the base.
Pretty sure.
Arene's the base is the first one.
Yeah.
It's the only one you can get.
Did they say that?
I think so.
Well, what else would be the base?
Well, what I'm saying, I mean, they said it's easier for you can get the other skins as well. Like, why wouldn't it be where you get to a point and then the Aurene part, which is what Boots is saying, like you have to defeat that well, you're not obviously defeating Aurene, but like you have to get a part of that dragon, or it has to be the essence that empowers this weapon. Maybe you get to a point with the other skins where if you didn't want to go for the Aurene stuff, you could just add a different unique part to what would make it this other skin. So do you know what I mean? So you wouldn't have to necessarily.
I do. I
would like
in my mind, it's what Rook was saying, that you could change between them at will afterwards.
I think that's the impression I got from the article where they describe it. They said that you craft it and then you take it to different areas, and that like in those different areas, I don't know what you have to do there, but you would tune it to the different aspects, which then unlocks the looks of those different things. And to me, thematically, I mean, back when we talked during the first release of the information about these legendaries, and that they were, at least at that time, all going to be Aurene themed, right? Like I kind of mentioned, it felt as though this set was meant to be our legendary, not somebody else's legend, our legend as Aurene's champion, as somebody that's tied to this, right? So I can see this being a culmination of that thematically. It makes sense to me, where like, yes, you do go and the weapon that you get is Aurene's weapon, but then based off of her power and based off of her ability to absorb and reflect and refract different abilities, you then take this around to those different locations and attune it to what you would want using her powers, so that it would be kind of part of a quest. Because again, we're hoping that it does kind of bring us back to quests in a more manageable way, but that it gives you some weight and some lore behind this weapon. And then there would be variations down the road for you to unlock. I mean, either way, I don't really think it's an issue, because it's going to take you long enough to make the ones you want to make anyway, for the most part, that like, hopefully by the time they start releasing these, and hopefully they release them in waves, that like, if you really do want that, it's like, well, I already have it, great. And I have I've got the Aurene one unlocked, and if I don't like how that looks, great, well then I can just take it and attune it, and I have both those cosmetic appearances anyway, so I can pick between which one. You know,
I'm more than the cosmetic options, because you can just freely transmute them at your will, because legendaries no longer cost transmutation charges, which is great. I'm just focused on how you acquire them. As we have said, that I really want to put this in the universe, that I would love if you had to go back to those expansion zones, or even like go into the scrying pool, and then through there you can go and fight Mordremoth again on migraine mode or something, and you go fight.
Oh, this is where the
Balthazar,
strikes.
all
This
stuff.
is why the strikes would
Yes.
be good. This is why the
That would be
strikes.
really good.
That's what I'm thinking. Is that this is. It would be
Revamp
so
Zaitan.
good. Yeah, exactly. Like redo the fight. Like make it for, because imagine if you're a new player and you do the core story and a strike is available to you in the core game, because the core end game. And then, because then it's already set up an idea of that stepping stone, which kept saying in the article, which we'll talk about in a bit, into Endgame. Because like you'd be like, there is the story mode version, which is what they're going to be doing in the expansion. They're going to have the story version, and then there will be the strike, which is the hardcore version, a little bit like Final Fantasy, well, a lot like Final Fantasy 14 and some other games, which would be fucking awesome. Like imagine that, like like Zaitan, give that fight some justice, damn it. Like, you know, let it have what it should have been. Like, you know, we've already got, and then you could do like for Mordremoth and obviously we've got that fight, I feel like, already, but you could maybe do a strike version of it, like and maybe you could do, I guess we've got the other one from the latest seat from Ice Brew Saga as well, I suppose. But you don't need to do a strike for every one. The content could be different, you know. I don't think it needs to be difficult for you to do it. I don't think legendaries are hard to
I think
get.
it should be difficult.
You think it
Legendaries
should?
are hard to get. I think
mean,
if it's a legendary,
the armor is hard to get.
The armor is hard to get because you actually have to do raids, but or if
Yeah.
you do PvP, you have to do competitive PvP, World versus World. You have to spend a lot of time in World versus World. I think legendaries should provide, because they're the maximum. They are the top thing you can get.
I think
it
it's
shouldn't be a
time
cakewalk.
based for most of the weapons. It's not hard, is it?
No, it can be hard in terms of like.
Tell me the difficulty. The hard part of getting a legendary weapon, Kroof, other than time.
It is time
I
is I
would
think
like to
one
know.
of the hardest aspects, but
Yeah.
with raids, you know, you have to do that.
That's
the
with
armor
armor,
is
yeah.
a thing.
Yeah.
But in
the
terms of the
armor's-
weapons, if you want to just not, you know, convert gems to gold, you have to actively like play endgame content to get loot bags and like the high-end crafting materials.
It's mostly time then. It is
It is a
pretty-
lot of time.
It's a lot of
I
time.
But I think that difficulty would be a nice little.
I
you know,
agree. I
star
agree
on
totally.
the tree.
Yeah.
Well, and they could easily
yeah.
make it something that, because like what is so difficult about the armor ones is that some of them are tied to like
Getting the
very
people to let me do it.
specific.
Sorry.
Well, yes, but it's because so many of them are tied to very finicky, specific achievements,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You have to
yeah,
do
yeah.
this thing and not get hit. You have to do that. You have to dodge 5
Yeah.
times. You do have to get hit. You need to, right?
Yeah.
So like,
so true.
if they literally just had something where like you have to clear this boss once or 5, like this strike once or 5 times, or you have to, I don't know, get a drop from it or something, that would take, I think, the biggest hurdle out of it, and then leave it to literally just be something where it's like, well, you do need to learn the fight and you do need to complete it. But again, it wouldn't necessarily be something like, now I have to get 10 people to sit here with me and just hope they're patient if I accidentally step in a red 5 times, or if I like if it was literally just something where you could be pugging more freely and you just had to get that clear, you know, X amount of completes or some kind of special drop from it, I think that would definitely make it far more accessible for people to then, you know, attune to whatever that was and unlock the appearance.
Well, it sounds like you're gonna have to fish the hardest fish in the sea, which is
well, yeah. I mean,
Spawning.
that's the thing, isn't it? That's interesting.
Fish
Like, what is
spawning.
that part going to be? So we already know there's going to be some kind of,
Fish.
rarity drop thing, which is going to be interesting. I'm wondering about the drop rate of that and like whether or not you can just get a specific, because it'll be a lure or something, I guess, maybe, or something you have to have and like attached to this.
No, fish.
Huh?
it'll be a fish. What do you? Huh?
Well, you need a
There are
specific
different-
lure to like, you know,
Yeah.
get it, like, or a buff where you have to like get
Oh,
this
okay,
thing
okay.
to you know, it would be cool to if you do that. Yeah, I mean, you can buy it as well, you know. I mean, like with legendaries, you can just buy all the things, but maybe it would be more fun if it was bind on account. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes
But
they
Go
do
to a
things.
fish market and you have to
But
buy
then the fish
legendary
economy
fish.
is no
Yeah,
good.
yeah, you have to
And the
role
fish-
play. You have to
The
role play.
fish should cost like 1 million karma if you want to get it or something.
No,
like,
everyone's
5
got
million
karma.
5 million karma, 10 million karma, something like that.
Yeah, 10 million would be good.
Well, I don't know about that. Like, a Gen 1 legendary only costs about, like, a little less than 1 million karma. So...
There needs to be a good karma sink. Karma is such a non-currency.
Right,
it's
we're
so
going to talk
funny.
about strikes.
Oh, it's so funny.
Okay, so on release of End of Dragons, there will be 4 strikes. 4 strikes will be released.
Whoa.
But, everyone, and here is the but.
I'm
I'm not
sitting
going
on
to show
it.
you a but. If you're listening, there will be no buts seen, unfortunately. There's going to be no harder mode. There's going to be no challenge modes available on launch of End of Dragons. Now, there is the thing with Half Ones, we didn't have raids on launch. So there is that to think about. Pathfire didn't have a raid with it when it launched either, I don't think. And neither will this, obviously. But it will
it's got
have
the
strikes
normal
included.
mode.
Yeah, it will have the normal strikes included. It will have the story. And necessarily, I mean, the end game they're mostly adding is probably metas and legendaries, I would say, as well as the strikes to do the story, which, you know, unless... They're just going to be like strikes are now, so they're chucking them in. There's a few things to this, so things to think about when we think about strikes. We're not just thinking about strikes, we're also thinking about Arborstone. We're thinking about Eye of the North not being that major point where people go to access strikes anymore. We're maybe thinking about the fact that will that be more abandoned now as we shift to a new expansion. We're thinking about 4 strikes. We're thinking about the main boss. Cough, spoiler, if you don't want to know what the name of the boss is, if you don't want to know about strikes, which is kind of why I left this towards the end. Please stop listening, because Matron is the one they mentioned, and also... accessibility is a big thing in this as well. There was a quote in there saying that ArenaNet says it wants to encourage accessibility and help ease players into tougher PvE content. Assuming... You can assume what you want, actually. We can talk about it. And also the insinuation and what this means for raids. So this is a big conversation. I realize we've been going for 2 hours. So if you do need to have a bathroom break, if you need to have some food or grab something to drink, take a minute. That's absolutely fine. If you're good to go still, then let me know and we'll do that. Either is fine. I want to make sure we get a little tiny break for peeps in if they need to have a stretch and stuff.
I'll go use
Now, did you say peeps as though we're people for people, or
Peeps for
did
people.
you mean
No,
have
well,
a
I
break
mean,
for peeps?
yeah, I mean, if you want to pee,
Okay.
I guess you can pee. And we'll have an intermission.
I'll take a little intermission. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I think that's actually something I can do. It's okay. Me and Rook are here, chilling. Brickle patch hollow on to make it not awkward.
Sure, yeah, it's definitely not awkward now. We'll just dance. Maybe I'll also go to the bathroom like the cool kids. I guess I could do that. And then just leave you here to dance by yourself, Jeb. That'd be sad.
Go to the bathroom if you need to go to the bathroom. Actually, I'm gonna go as well. I'm gonna go. Let's all go to the bathroom.
All
I'll leave
right,
the stream
all
on.
right. Let's go to the bathroom together. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's all go together. We'll be right back. And they can't hear you. They can hear you now, though.
Ah, damn. Oh, no, you can't. I was going to have an intimate moment with chat.
I'm sorry. You can have it now if you want.
Hi, chat. Can I tell you something?
This will be on the actual podcast as well, so just know.
I don't have any qualms with people knowing my deepest, darkest secrets. Chat, I need to tell you something. I really like ranch. Ranch is so good.
You like ranch? Ranch.
Ranch. I really enjoy ranch.
Ranch.
Hi, Boots. Welcome back. We're talking about ranch.
Ranch.
I knew you were
Not
talking about me.
ranch. As in raunchy. Ranch. Wait. How do you say it? Ranch? Ranch.
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 Ranch. How do you say it? Boots?
Ranch
I'm
dressing.
gonna go farming on the ranch.
I say ranch.
On the range.
I say it rancha.
Say
Rancha.
ranch.
I don't know what that sounds like.
I say ranch.
Can be part. Is this part 2? I guess there's part 2. I guess I could do parts now.
I know French. Just kidding, I don't.
Parlez-vous
Don't kid
français?
about that with me. Say that again.
Parlez-vous français?
Perfect. Perfect.
Was that actually good?
No.
I mean, you're the one who can speak French more than me, I guess.
I think the problem is your R.
Yeah, I'm English. R's are definitely a problem. I'm from London as well.
Yes.
I can't even do the F's properly. No F's to give. Or say.
Yeah, that's true. Say the word THIN.
E-H-I-N.
THIN. Say that word.
E-H?
T.
T-H-I-N.
Thin.
This word. Say it again.
Then?
Then?
What's
Then?
then? That's not even a word, Boots.
No, thin.
Oh,
Thin.
what?
Jebro!
I thought
Do
you
you know
I had
that it's
fin.
It's thin! What do you mean thin isn't a word?
He was saying then.
I was saying then.
Then.
Why was I? What was I doing?
I don't know.
Chat, get me out of here. I can't.
Oh my
But the
god.
important part is actually say the word now, Jebro.
Finn.
Say the word. Say it.
Finn? Why did I say then? What the hell?
I don't know. Let's say it.
Gosh.
Just
Finn.
say the word.
Finn.
Yeah, you say it with an F. You say F.
I do say it with an
Yeah,
F. Yeah.
it's Finn.
No, I know that. That's like the
It's
moon in the
finicky.
earth. Yeah, finicky. Like, or fin, like a fin on a fish that we catch. Oh fuck, I'm done.
Speaking of which, we're talking about.
Feeling rather thin today.
Thanks for the raid, Guild MM. We are
Welcome.
talking about actually End of Dragons. Who would have known? Fins.
Taking a quick break. We all
On the
bio stuff and
legendary
Hello.
fish that we fish.
yeah,
Thank you, Guild MM.
pick me up. I'm
Everyone,
scared.
welcome. We are talking about End of Dragons. We're about to get onto the strike conversation for our podcast. This is the 35th episode. If you've just popped in,
thought it was the
welcome.
36th.
Could Rook hear us?
It can always be ahead, behind, or oh god, Lord. Jesus.
I forgot that you
No,
had
I did actually turn you down while I was talking to my partner, but only after, because I've never had wireless headphones before. So I was walking around the house and Bebop's like, "You have your headphones on," and I was like, "I do," and then your beautiful voice just went straight into my ears, Kroof, and I jumped.
And
I
you
was
jumped.
like,
Oh, I was like thinking, I wonder, I didn't actually think about that. Was Rook, could Rook hear us when they were going to the bathroom? I think
had a
this
great
is.
conversation.
People do that.
questions we don't need to answer on the LightBringer.
We're almost there.
No.
One day. We're getting close.
We're building trust.
We'll build up to
Guild
that one.
MMO, great, because we're back to we all AFK'd. We all took a
Yeah, we're
quick
literally
minute.
having our break. We're literally talking about the strikes next. So tiny break. So everyone, welcome as well. If you are here and you're brand new, I am Jebro, and this is the LightBringers podcast. We have Rook, we have Boots, we have Kroof on today. If you do
Just
want
for today.
for today, well, just today. I mean, in future and in the past, there's 34 episodes. Yes. This
Also,
is
I
part of the
always want
stream.
to say Guild M&M.
M&Ms are
Anyway,
nice.
back to the podcast.
Yes, that's the podcast. But I'm going to quickly sell the stream as well. So if you're first time you're here as well, play loads of MMORPGs. So do all of the awesome people on the crew here. Mostly streaming Fridays and weekends. Do this as part of my work while I'm in school. So if you want to subscribe, if you want to follow these awesome peeps as well, muchly appreciated. We're all doing various things and creating full-time or part-time or whatever, so support is muchly appreciated.
Whatever.
Only quarter time.
You're a bad influence, Kroof. I never dabbed so much in my life until I was on this podcast with you. Now I can't stop.
Dabbing. Dabby
It definitely
dabbers.
died out, but hey, I'm a necromancer.
Did you do a
quid? Dead.
I couldn't see it. I didn't have my screen up when you dabbed, but I just saw it on the actual cast. Did you do a quadruple dab?
I did. Yeah, I did, because that's where I'm at right now.
Wow.
I've been leveling up.
Is that called a quab? Like a
I did a quab.
quadruple dab? A quab.
Anyways.
I'm as cool as the people who made up dabbing.
Fair enough.
there's no. Yeah. Anyway.
No argument there.
Hey, my clients really like having an English counselor. I'll have you know.
You know what? That is
they're
a perk.
cool. It is a perk. That's what they said anyway. Some of them, maybe they're lying. Okay, so well, there is a lot. There is a lot
Yes.
to this. Let's start with 4 strikes.
Oh, I have a lot to say about this.
Oh, I have a lot to say about this. Kroof, tell us what you have to say about this.
Oh.
You made a video. I will find it.
Made a video?
I did make a video because as partners, we're not able to actually participate in this preview, so I had to
Oh,
leak.
God, Kroof just dropping that bomb in there
Bring it
again.
I mean, it's
like
true.
passive aggressive comment to ArenaNet. No, I did have to make a video because
Okay, I did.
As
and I just.
partners.
Oh yeah,
Didn't have any
actually,
footage.
Kroof wrote an entire article based on the other articles just to make sure to feel part of it. It was like, but it was a video as well.
It's not meant to be passive aggressive. I have to disclose the truth, people. Okay, we have to have a transparent advertising. Anyway, so I did make a video on it, and I talked a lot about how strike missions was only 4. I, right off the bat, will get into the details. I am actually, more that I thought about it, I thought I'd come to terms with it. I'm not coming to terms with it. I do think it's rather disappointing that strike missions are a single boss instance with 1 arena, and there's only 4 of them when you compare it to Icebreed Saga, when 1 free episode, there were 3 strike missions. So I think in terms of the quantity,
Ooh,
not
good
talking
point.
about the actual experience, the quantity objectively, because we haven't been able to play it, I am currently disappointed. Subject to change.
I mean, I'll come in with, I guess, a slightly different perspective on this, which is that I agree with you, and I agree with you as a starting point, because after this point, I will not agree any further. But baseline.
Wait, which point?
After what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Baseline. If we're looking at just previous strikes and things like that, and we're talking about what we might expect from these 4, I think that unless they really have, like they said in these articles and other things, unless they really have stepped up a bit of the complexity and interest and design and thematic design and music and experience of these strikes, unless they've done that, then I agree that it would be underwhelming. If they really have, I actually think it's fine. Because honestly, when we're looking at the content that gets released, like, okay, Final Fantasy XIV, which obviously just had Endwalker, they release 3 single boss encounters upon expansion release. And with those, 2 of them at release do have a hard mode, the extreme version, which we would then consider to be challenge modes. And then the 3rd one down the road gets that. And then we sporadically we'll get another set of 4 later down the road.
Yeah.
That'll come out in installments. We'll get 1, then the next.
Can I
and
ask
the
an
next, and
additional
the
question
next.
while you're going through that? What did they add any other end game content like raids or dungeons though?
Yes, but post expansion release. So raids. Well, here, no, this is a good discussion to have. This is a good discussion to have. So raids come out post-expansion release, but dungeons are a part of playable content that are released in the game. Now, however, I would say the trade-off is that they don't really have anything like metas. So like that form of combat content that we talked about, we don't really have the open world form equivalent. We have something like world bosses, which are like 2 special bosses that appear in a couple zones. But again, it's not really the same thing. It's not of the same scale. There's like these hunt marks you can find, which are kind of, again, like a special creature that appears on a map. But again, it's not a meta, which in and of itself is a huge thing in Guild Wars 2. So if we're like just looking at the actual bosses, this is pretty on par for what even like 14 does. But again, if we don't see the quality of these 4 bosses really be something that's meaty and interesting and different for each, then I think that's where it's going to be a little more frustrating. But I'm not actually that upset right now just looking at it.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. We'll see.
I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe around 4, 5, 6. So I'm not like disappointed yet. I agree with you, Rook, about the same thing. Basically everything you said I agree with. I will say though that considering the fact that the way I understand it, these strike missions are supposed to be based off of story beats, right? Like things that happen in this. They're repurposing story stuff into strike missions. That makes me wonder: are there really only 4 things that happen in the entire End of Dragon story that could be repurposed into strike missions?
That's what is also in my mind, which is contributing to my disappointment, because we've gotten maybe a hint that there are 5 acts, and maybe the minimum then would have been 5 bosses, like 1 strike mission per act of the expansion. But if there, it might not be 5. So because they are repurposing it and it doesn't actually require any new narrative design, because they are repurposing something that they're already doing, no new model creation, and especially no new arena creation or setting creation, I would have liked for them to really bolster the core story with more boss quality experiences to then increase it.
I mean, I'll come back with that in that, again, just because Endwalker is something that I've played so recently and I play both games, right? 14 does the exact same thing. So those 3 bosses that I talked about are in the story. And then that harder version, you unlock later and can play. And every now and then the extreme or challenge mode version of this boss will have like a bonus phase or something. But for the most part, again, it's like the same arena, same stuff, same boss. And then like very special ones that are kind of iconic will get some kind of bonus phase or something like that that's added in. And I have not found that it actually makes the quality of the story suffer to only have those few battles. I think we have to assume that overall, much like they do in many, other story content, there will be other playable missions, encounters, things that are closer to what we would imagine just to be like the instances that we get as you go through, and there might be bosses within that and people within that. But it might just be that with this new strike format, they decided to highlight the most notable like single bosses, or to do something of that scale where they're building the narrative now around this content format that they have. So it's not necessarily that there's only going to be those beats. Yeah. It's just that this is a new form of storytelling and combat engagement that they can plan around and use at key moments, if that makes sense. But again, it's all dependent on the quality of that really standing up. And I mean, theoretically, yes, all these bosses are new bosses and they are new models and they are new arenas. I mean, minus at least my Trin, who we know about.
That's another ding on my list.
But she is an iconic character, and I assume there'll probably be, hopefully, something that again takes that fight to a greater scale. And I see here in chat that Blueberry was even saying that when part of the media blitz there, that it was really challenging and they had fun with it. So that's something that I think that'll be the thing. is the value delivered from those thematic enough? Is it engaging enough, memorable enough, challenging enough? Again, that in the normal mode, it's not prohibitive towards players, but that it does give you something that when it's iterated upon in challenge mode, that it's like, yes, this is awesome, and this is going to give me something to really dive into.
Well, my further worries are kind of beyond that, because I'm under the impression that you don't actually need to do strike missions to finish the story. It's just that the strike missions are a separate branch that take story bosses. So strike missions are an optional game mode. And with that, and because we're not getting a classic system of dungeons and raids, I was hoping that strike missions were no longer going to be a bridge to do raiding, but were inherently raid quality in and of themselves. And with that, and because it doesn't seem like they are separating themselves from this like ladder system where strike missions are their own entity and not meant to be that bridge, I am worried that they're not going to be challenging enough, because the past strike missions have not proven to me that they are consistent in their difficulty. I will say that the latest one, Whisper of Jormag, I think was a really healthy place for designing an encounter that many people can play. There still is an aspect of challenge and needing to understand the mechanics. So if they're able to hit that with at least 3 of the strike missions, I would say that would be okay for a normal strike mission experience. But it's been inconsistent, so I don't want to put all my chips in that pile just yet.
I know that one of the articles I was reading mentioned that the mechanics involved will make players have to use movement and positioning a lot more than they used to have to do in other strike missions. And I don't know, that's what they say now, because maybe, who knows, it'll be easy to cheese just by having a scourge out there and a firebrand, but yeah, that'd be interesting if they could do that. That'd be good.
And I really hope that is the case, but because this seemed to be such a limited encounter and experience, I mean, Bone Skinner, when it first launched, people were trying to do the mechanic and they thought there was a lot of movement to it until people found that you could cheese it. However, they did mention that they're trying to learn from that and avoid a Bone Skinner-esque scenario. So hearing that is really positive. And
how many times have we seen the player base just completely overwrite that? But this is the other thing, and I think this is a conversation which kind of goes hand in hand with strikes and any endgame content and any content in Guild Wars 2. Balancing and what they do with that is going to be massively important for the longevity of their game. And I think that making sure that they've reduced, or starting to reduce a lot of the 10 target stuff to 5 now. Things like, quickness, alacrity, hopefully, and like everything else. So hopefully that's something that becomes, a reality. But also just making sure that we can't do that, because the game can be cheesed very easily by avoiding a ton of mechanics which actually make those encounters very unique, very fun, and possibly challenging if they weren't just avoided with barrier or just like
out healed.
Yeah, or out healed. Like I don't mind like Aegis, for example, being something which you used to maybe block an attack like once every so often, but just don't make it as accessible. Like, barrier is something which is so ridiculously accessible. Healing is accessible and you can cheese through things. And hopefully maybe the challenge modes are things which they can apply where it reduces the amount of healing that is available. It reduces, like, it's not just specifically just a mechanic which is added. I actually think it might be quite cool to reduce some of the stats or something on your, like, maybe have a ton of options and just really have it going out there on some ridiculousness. I don't know, whatever. But like, I don't know, I think balance is definitely a question in that. I am concerned that this is going to be a steamroll for a lot of people, and it's just going to be like it is right now, where strikes are kind of just.
I have a feeling it's going to be that, right?
Which is unfortunate.
No,
it's unfortunate.
I feel like the opposite.
I feel like
I think for the people who are expecting strike missions to be, raid mode type things on release, they're gonna get disappointed because
not on release. They're
normal difficulty strike missions. So yeah, you're gonna be able to blow through them pretty easily as long as you have a decent comp. But I think when the challenge modes come out, I think that'll probably be good for those people who want that.
Yeah, okay, that I agree with. That the challenge mode itself, I think, will hopefully bring more to the table. And I think they had a lot of really good data to work with. Coming off of Iceberg Saga, which also might be why we saw so many other things going into that, with them trying to test this new game mode and trying to test different design mechanics and all sorts of things with it. I do really hope that we see an iteration, and I honestly think we've seen a lot of promise in current content. I think even in the most recent Fractal and stuff like that, we've seen them start to streamline and figure out what is or isn't working as far as telegraphs, what kind of mechanical things player base does just cheese around. And I mean, like we've talked about, there will always be that to some extent in a game that has so much flexibility in builds and so much flexibility in comp as Guild Wars 2 does. I think it's impossible for them to create in one instant something that like perfectly combats every single thing in the game. So I think instead then it becomes a range of different things that allow certain things to shine, but again, builds out for certain conventional cheeses, right? Yeah. Things that might commonly be just, a shortcut to not have to really engage with what they're trying to put down. But I mean, I have hope for these, and we were talking about this before the podcast, actually. I was really surprised that they are still referring to these as a stepping stone to raid content.
Let's get into this.
Yes. That's the evolution here of this thought, I guess, because I am still holding out hope that post End of Dragons, we will hear something about an actual game plan for PvE endgame content in regards to whether or not we are going full strikes, whether or not we are going to be getting raids intermingled, fractals, challenge modes for all of the above. Like, I'm really hoping, I got my fingers crossed, they're going to let us know. But the fact that it didn't seem like any of these media outlets were saying outright that strikes were replacing raids was kind of surprising to me, but
yes,
not that I'm disappointed, because I do like raids, I'm just curious.
I am too, because I'm currently mentally operating in a world where we're not getting raids. So that's why I really hoped that they would have been distancing themselves from their original idea of what strike missions were supposed to be. Because strike missions, honestly, are not a great stepping ladder to actually do raids. I think the only way we can do that is
Can you say more about why you think that?
They are, I mean,
I'm not saying
average,
you're wrong. I'm just asking for viewers and listeners, just wondering about what your opinion is on that.
I think on average, raids hold more mechanical intricacies than a lot of strike missions do. Even pugging strike missions, I can kill a strike mission in a minute and a half, 2 minutes. With raids, it typically is a bit longer. There are a couple more fails, and there just seems to be more of a sentiment that is endgame, not that raids are designed to be a easy mode endgame. And
I have a big question then.
Yes.
You would assume, and you would assume that a stepping stone would be something that would be short, maybe a training that might get you to used to something. If a stepping stone was such a short, like a training kind of essentially for something which is going to be hard to do, why is there so much of it?
So much of a training?
No, why is there so many strikes if they're a stepping stone? Like, I mean, this is the thing. Is the wording something? Is this stepping stone harming them in a way? Because then if they do go off of raids and they're not going to do any raids, then strikes is then going to be compared to the continuing not new content, but like, because raids are still endgame content, because they always will be, because they've got legendary armor in it. Like that's just literally the thing. They will always be relevant.
And that's another reason. There's no direct connection to raids. So if you do strike missions and you only are interested in strike missions, there is nothing that actually reward-wise leads you to even entertain the concept of raids. There's nothing like where you're doing a strike mission every week, you'll do a weekly achievement that gives you a legendary insight or gives you a provisioner token or something that actually goes to legendary armor, which you can get from raids. There's no like, oh, look at this. Oh, if I do a couple strike missions, I'm like, okay, I'm doing 10-man content and I'm getting extremely minor rewards, but oh, what does this reward go to? Oh, legendary armor. How can I more quickly get this? This looks cool. Oh, raids.
But then wouldn't you be saying that's replacing raids as a reward?
Not necessarily, because it would be such a time commitment that it would be like, it would take you years upon years of actually just doing strike missions to get legendary armor, to the point where it's like, if you did that full send, you deserve it. If you did
That's
those
what
strike
people
missions
would do,
for
though.
years on end,
People would do that for sure.
but hey, it keeps people playing for years on end.
I mean,
As
the
long
thing
as it
that's-
keeps people in the game.
This is so interesting. This is a really good discussion because in many ways, and we talk about this all the time, we praise the fact that there's no gear treadmill in game, right? But in many other games, the gear treadmill is used as a way to create a sense of progression and logic, right? So I want slightly better gear. So again, I'm just going to use 14 as an example here because it's a big one for me and it's very fresh with how they do things right now. Not that I by any means think that Guild Wars 2 needs to do things like 14. This is just a parallel because they're similar. I just want to give everybody that preface. Like there, right? Technically, their equivalent of strikes, which are these primals that you fight, the primal encounters, they are not directly tied to raids. So there's like nothing that you do in those that will like immediately, you know, link you either narratively or otherwise to doing raids, except for the fact that technically raids in 14 are 4 individual bosses that come in a set. They are not like a wing like in World of Warcraft or, you know, other games or in Guild Wars 2. They are 4 individual bosses. So I guess in that sense, it is kind of giving you a sense of the structure. But I mean, you could just say the same about Guild Wars 2 and the fact that there are single bosses in raid wings. It's just that you have to get to them, right? So you could say that that logic is already connecting strikes to raids. But in many other games, the idea is that as you go through and you progress, right, you probably develop an emotional attachment or at least know that these bosses exist because you've done the story. Then you think, oh, I want better gear. How do I do that? Oh, I might do extreme primals. Oh, they have a special mount that drops from them. Oh, they have these collection mounts where if you get all the different mounts from each of these, then you unlock a bonus mount, right? So we have this like gear thought that like I'll get better geared, and then after I'm better geared, then I'll get even better geared by going into raids. But I think Guild Wars 2 could do something to still incentivize people to get into these by doing something like unique mount skin collections, by doing different things like that, because we don't have a gear treadmill in Guild Wars 2. But I do think that single bosses can very much be a stepping stone in the sense of if you are getting people used to working in that size party against a single boss, having to come across the baseline mechanics for this game with additional fun stuff that's unique to each, you are still teaching them something about this format and then giving them something to facilitate them getting into raids. But it's all about, again, making that transition between each smooth and offering something outside of a conventional gear treadmill that brings it to people's attention and then engages them with it. Which is, well, I'll touch on this later. I'm curious, everybody else to have a chance to talk. But there was something else I wanted to bring up with this.
This might segue a little bit away from your point, just a bit, but I think I've been so much more around the PvE community recently, and I have been really hungry for endgame content, something that is a bit more challenging. And I feel like for some time now, ArenaNet and the community and the systems that are being inputted, I feel like for a bit too long now, we have been continually talking about how to teach people the game. And I wonder when the time will come when we have finished teaching people the game so we can develop actual content for those who know the game. I feel like that has been really lacking. And that is an issue with the stepping stone phrasing, because it implies that, and I was fully under the impression that at some point in Icebrood Saga, we would get a raid, because then you would directly see in the timeline, like, okay, they did these strike missions, it's teaching you things, and then there is the thing that you were preparing for. If this is something to prepare for, what are we preparing for? And because we haven't gotten any information about raids or, committing to a very challenging strike mission course, it's left me like, well, what is there to do for people who understand the game and who were taught through those strike missions?
Go back and do the old raids.
I mean, yeah. I think the problem
that I don't think is enough.
well,
That's not enough.
You want
I
new
think the
stuff?
problem. Well, yes.
Also, why are we teaching people the game at level 80? That should have been done. That should have been well done.
That's a different conversation than
That's,
many,
you
many
get level 80
games.
boosts. The core game is really easy. There's a lot of reasons
if you
why.
want to teach people, go back to those systems. You can still update these systems.
Are we
Well,
talking
that's
new
why
player experience there as well?
Well, that's a part of new
Probably.
player experience. But I think at this point, we are in the situation where we have to teach, and like the company and the game has to teach you. In a perfect world, the game wouldn't be teaching you well after max level in the current development.
Yeah.
But this is the reality we live in.
Yes, but I think a lot of it is because of the fact that, like we've been saying all the time, they have introduced new fundamental concepts into the game over the course of its life that then haven't been necessarily worked in long term to the bigger picture. So we're now seeing them trying to bridge this gap of like, okay, well, we didn't introduce strikes until the Icebird saga. So how do we, like, if we didn't have that content and we didn't have anything that was really technically a stepping stone, because we only got raids in Heart of Thorns, but we didn't have, it becomes this thing where they're trying to almost retroactively fill in the gaps of that progression of content, to the point where I absolutely agree with you, Kroof. Like, I think this is a really serious thing that they do need to think about moving forward, which is why I keep saying they've got to say something about what their goal is for Endgame. Because there are so many people, I love this game, we all love this game, right? But there are so many people who, as we see this news, it is hard to be excited, because you're right, it doesn't feel like, what do I, as a veteran player, have to look forward to in PvE content? Okay, well, we have these, new hard modes that are coming, but again, we don't have the context or understanding of when those are happening, what the challenge level will be, whether or not there's any other future thing outside of this to really understand it.
What does it make you do as well, Rook, as a player who wants that kind of content? What does it make you think and feel or do?
I mean, I'm
hoping you're going to give me the right answer.
Well, we'll see.
Maybe.
I mean, honestly, I think it makes you leave the game and go to other games that have that kind of content that you want. And I think that this is not bad that they're doing. I think this is great. This is great. The problem is, like we've been talking about, how do you make this retroactively consistent while also developing new things for the future? I loved the idea that all of you had about like going back and adding in those key strikes for previous parts of the story, right? So that, again, players are getting introduced to that concept from the get-go, and we're getting new content that's like that, and that's making use of new mechanics, and that they could easily integrate retroactively and like future patch stuff into older content to even have it there. But the thing I was going to say earlier is that even just looking at this, right, the fact that these new strikes come from a different hub, so the information that we got, they're coming from the Aetherblade hideout, right? But then even that, it's like, as a player, how do you encounter these and how do you flow through them? If I'm having to go sometimes to Eye of the North to do some stuff, and then I'm having to go to the Fractal spot, and then I have to go to the raid spot, but then if I want to do the other strikes, then I have to go to
system.
the one portal on the map. Like, they need a hub where you can, when you unlock these, like, you are guided to them.
What else do they need, Rook? What else do they need, Rook?
And then you've got a hub.
No, they need an LFG. That's what they blimmin' well need. That's your hub. And there's Kroof as well there. Zena.
You need something. A hub, either it's an LFG where here's the list of every strike that you have unlocked and you can queue into them anywhere with any group. Or like, literally, we were talking about guild halls and making them more relevant or whatever. But again, that might bar some people that don't have one. But it's like having some kind of place where all of this content is unlocked and accessible is going to be crucial. And we need to know what's happening in the future for it.
My hub. My
I
lovely
mean, I think
radio.
isn't this like this is kind of where Guild Wars 2 has been for a long time, because I think in a way from the launch of Guild Wars 2 they had such a specific roadmap for themselves. Like, we knew as well. We knew there wasn't going to be any expansions. We knew there wasn't going to be raids, and they told us as much. They went back on that. They went back on it, and they went back on a Trinity as well, actually, to be honest, because there is one. There is definitely a Trinity that exists. You don't play the Trinity the whole time, but it exists, and it exists in all game modes. And not strictly like other games where you have to have, but some things you do need to, like some raid bosses. The thing that I think is interesting now is that they are now at this point where I don't think they ever say we won't do that again, because they've already said we will not do that ever, and it's kind of been they've gone back on it. So I think if they always leave it open, like even if they're not making raids right now, even if we have the hope that we want them to, or they are, or whatever, if it's left open, then there is always the idea that maybe it's something that's potentially coming. And I think ArenaNet, they are a very awesome, inclusive company which wants to give access to players to content which feels relevant. If they say there's no more raid content coming, they may feel that they may be closing the door on a lot of people maybe thinking about the option to even go there unconsciously, or whatever you want to say. Because then if you say there's no more raid content, what does that say to you? That means there's no more raids, but there's still an important part of the end game for getting the best legendary armor in the game if you don't PvP or World v World, and that's still massive, and that could be maybe enough. But there is that communication there, and it sends an unconscious message of we are not sure what's going on. And I think that is something we've had since launch. I really do. Like, I really think it's very wishy-washy, not really got an idea of a clear direction, and I think a lot of that came from Mo as well, of like this surprise and delight aspect, which just doesn't work in today's world. May have worked back in the day of Super Nintendo and like flipping 90s, do you know what I mean? Because back then, you know, it was a surprise most of the time, and that was cool and that was fun because things were hardly ever released. But it's just like this, it is very wishy-washy, whereas like Final Fantasy 14, like I like how they do their stuff, ESO how they do their stuff. There's a clear idea of what that end game is, and I'm not saying you have to have a clear idea as a player. It's nice to have options and it's cool, but when you're not sure where the game is going as you're investing in something for such a long period of time, you want to know where you're going. Like where is your journey going? If you're exploring somewhere, like,
but having a sense of confidence in the product.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. Yeah, and that's essentially what like big part of the journey, isn't it? Because you want to know it's going to exist. You want to know that it's going to be there. You want to know that you're going to be able to do a thing to get to a goal. You know, and it just feels like sometimes that. And then maybe they want everyone to be like, you know, your end game is whatever you want it to be, and that's also fine. And there's a lot of options, but I feel like just reading the articles and stuff, like, just personally, in my opinion, it was just a bit of a letdown. In all honesty, it was just like, you know, I really feel like the raiding community needs an answer for this. Like, give them a damn answer. Give me an answer. Like, are we gonna have more raids? Like, just give us a flipping clue. And then, because if you give them an answer for the raids, like, there's not gonna be any raids anymore, but we're gonna have strikes, and that's where our passion is going to be, then you will just see this insurgence of people making content around strikes, making more content around strikes, trying to go into the challenge modes, builds, tournaments for strikes. So we don't have many tournaments for strikes, do we? Like, the, you know, Teapot's done raid tournaments and other people have as well, but you'll see this insurgence of so many people just getting into this thing because they know that that's where their focus is. But if they keep calling it a stepping stone, what's the point in focusing on this thing which isn't the end?
They call it a step. My question is, during the press tour where all these article writers came to go see the stuff, did they get told that strikes are a stepping stone there? or do they just have it
Well,
as
it
being told in the
probably-
past?
I mean, considering how it was in every article I read, it probably was maybe a part of the media kit to be like, make this a clear point, because it is the intended effect. But and they have never really gone back and said, like, originally they said you can play whatever you want, you can do anything in Guild Wars 2, and then we saw them start to go towards a Trinity system, and they never went back on their word. They kind of just shift things without actually saying anything. So while they still might be considering it as a stepping stone, from the community, that's the only thing we can rely on at this point. So I think collectively we decide in a way for them. So if people really gravitate towards strikes and do them, we decide if this is going to be a staple, or if they are going to go try do fractals or, raids. I think they will decide once they get more information and data on the popularity of strikes.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Isn't it? Like, that's the thing. It's like, and then we're still waiting, but then how long do you have to wait? But then, because if there's no raid being built right now, that's another year away at least, probably, or maybe 6 months. I don't know.
But I mean,
ultimately,
there's enough.
So
Yeah,
strikes
and
are
that's the
boss.
thing. If there are strikes in between that, and we know that a raid wing is coming, I think again that fosters faith in those who would want to invest in that type of content, staying longer term. Kroof, I think it was you that said, like, those players don't know if they're putting the investment in, if there's going to be anything for them to get out of it. And I thought that was such a smart way to do it. Like, a lot of people may not want, or to phrase it, that a lot of people may not want to spend hours and hours and hours and hours getting all the gear, getting all the stuff, doing all the things in a game where they're not even sure if the type of content they might like is going to be represented. All of this to say, I honestly think that the range of content that Guild Wars 2 offers in a PvE level, and the current raids as they are, and like if we have new players who are listening, who are curious about it, I think people get very passionate about this because I genuinely do think they're fun. I think there are some that are better than others. I think that there is a different threshold of technical difficulty in Guild Wars 2 than in many other games, in theory crafting, in comp, and the freedom of comp. I do think that, again, is it going to be the exact same kind of end game as you see if you're a WoW raider or a 14 raider? No, I think it's much closer to ESO endgame in the sense that things are a little bit messier, they're a little more chaotic, it's a different vibe. But that doesn't mean that it's not still really fun and really rewarding, and that I even enjoy doing like easier bosses, or, learning all the different bosses and seeing the full range of goofy things they can put into the raids and difficult things that they can put into the raids using Guild Wars 2's unique mechanics. So I think there's so much promise there in both the fractals, strikes, and raids. It's just honing in and then delivering whatever they want to do with that in such a way that it's reliable and it's of a good enough quality and range that people enjoy engaging with it. I mean, everything I heard from these articles seemed to enjoy the normal version of this encounter. People were saying that there were some things that were punishing, even though it was normal, and that, it seemed like everybody had a good time with it. So I know, fingers crossed, like I do really hope, but I think there are some bigger questions that we've all brought up that are important as they continue to look forward to building and expanding on this kind of content and getting people to buy into it long term as something that they want to do, will enjoy, and plan for.
And what comes with that is they're redesigning the reward system as well, which is going to be important.
Don't like that they're splitting it up. I think if it was more cohesive, it would be better, because it would.
You're saying that they're not redesigning the old strike mission rewards?
No, they're splitting the currency up from Ice Brute Saga currency and End of Dragons currency.
Because we need more currency in the game as well.
Again, I think if you want people to do strike missions, put all the strike missions in one basket rather than splitting them up.
But I mean, that's what they had to do for raids too, right? They split it up between.
Chose to. They don't need to.
Well, they kind of did, because there were some people who did a lot of raiding and had a lot of currency, and some people who didn't, and starting the new ones, they could have just bought everything right away with the old currency if they didn't split it up, which might be what happens here.
Should I tell you what I did appreciate in these articles was a little bit of honesty. I'm going to kind of push us a little bit along. which is actually just on the same, it's on the same
Same
It's on the
topic.
same topic because this is the last topic and it's the biggest one. I wrote in the, in the document "brutal but true" with a question mark, and it was a comment from Screen Rant. So forgive me if this is a bit long-winded. When Guild Wars 2 first introduced strike missions during the Icebreach saga, they weren't particularly good. This is in the actual article, and players weren't interested in playing them. Strikes were designed to introduce players to 10-man content and the kinds of mechanics that are encountered during raiding, with enhanced versions of boss fights from the great game story, much like Trials and Final Fantasy XIV. Most of the strikes were simply too easy, resulting in players dismissing the mechanics altogether in favour of simply out-damaging the boss with a minimal amount of coordination. As a result, strikes did not actually accomplish the objective of bridging new players into raiding, which continues to be limited to a small fraction of the player base. And the Dragon's ArenaNet appears to be taking strikes closer towards what they were intended to be. And I'm still confused, because that part of the article seems to be like, what is it intended to be? Like, can you someone tell me a stepping stone? I mean, like,
I guess
that's
so.
the ultimate thing, though. But the thing is, the stepping stone is the earlier part of that quote, which is what he says, which is what they say. Sorry. Which is the fact that they weren't that difficult, and it's because it's supposed to be for like
I
the
think
big
they're saying
community.
that it's what it's intended to be is a stepping stone because it'll be interesting enough for people to play, get them to play it, and
Well,
get
yeah,
them
that's what
interested in
stepping
doing
stone
raids
is.
because of it.
Exactly, yeah. But like
So-
that is not potentially what that's the earlier part of the quote, yeah, for sure.
I think they were saying that the reason why strike missions failed originally is because they weren't interesting enough to play, and
Yeah.
therefore people didn't want to do raids, because if raids are just more of this, then what's the point? But
But then you
Yeah.
actually have to design things that are similar to raids and echo a sense of raids. Which, you know, from what I've kind of gotten is that the difficulty isn't really that to that degree. It still acts as the training system. So it's this weird, like, you have to, it's almost like you have to make it hard and engaging enough to be interesting, but they seem to be still like afraid of doing that to make
I'm
sure that this is
wondering-
a, you know, teaching
I'm
tool.
wondering if so the way I understand it is the challenge modes are going to be raid level difficulty, correct?
That's what they have said.
They
And
should
yes.
be.
And they're not
levels
raid
of
level
challenge modes on.
difficulty with challenge modes on.
That's what I wanted to talk about. I think it'll just be the level
challenge
of
modes.
a raid boss, not a raid boss on a challenge mode.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good
Okay.
point.
All
Which
right.
I would have
Well-
liked a raid boss on a challenge mode level difficulty.
Well,
of
that's
strike
a
challenge
good.
mode.
This is a good like. I mean, that's a good conversation as well. Like maybe for another time. I don't know now, but like, you know, that is a good question. Like maybe they should be just raid level bosses, because not all raid level bosses are hard anyway. Like maybe
That's what I'm
like
saying. That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
A
like
stepping stone could just not mean that it's easier than raid and therefore less interesting. A stepping stone could just mean that it's not 2 hours long because it's only one boss and not 4 bosses.
well, that's another way of
And-
putting it. Yeah. So, but maybe there is no definition to stepping stone. That's the thing, isn't it? What is the definition of their definition? I guess maybe.
I mean, having a range of difficulty with these, I don't think is a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's we'll just draw a parallel 14 because it's just is what's my mind. But you know, the earlier story bosses are typically less difficult than the later ones that you get. And so you have an organic progression again as you're a lower level, you experience the easier stuff, you go through it, you get your things, you move on, you keep going. So I don't mind if within the challenge mode versions of these, you know, bosses, we do get something where, like, yes, one of them might be closer to, I guess, a difficulty of like VG. Another one might be incredibly hard. The thing that is just kind of tough to me is that if they don't offer unique incentives for each of these and it's all just the same currency, then what is going to incentivize you from doing the easy one 5,000 times? Like, I think, again, there's different achievements, there's different things that you can do with this. But I think there needs to be a reason to run all of these. I think something like, yes, pieces, like different pieces of a collection you could get from like each of these different bosses that would then culminate in a unique skin for like a mount would be
They need to get on it. They need to get on the flipping train. Give them the damn mount skins. Do what ESO do. In ESO, if you do the hardest veteran one, a dungeon, and you get all the achievements from that one raid, you get the sparkly skin, like it changes your skin, so it's literally an infusion, and you get a flipping mount that has that same look. It is awesome. I think
the challenge modes will have better loot. I think the quote that Blueberry put into chat a while ago has after Into Dragons launches, each strike missions will get a challenge mode that ups the difficulty for coordinated teams with the promise of even greater loot. So
yeah.
If
it was just a chance. If people knew that there was a chance of acquiring a rare mount skin by doing a mission, people would farm that like there was no tomorrow. Okay.
Honestly, if those existed, like the pinata drop, a Chag Jarrett drop, any of those drops, if those kinds of drops, the rarity of them existed in strike missions, there'd be a lot more people doing strike missions.
I think you definitely need consistent rewards as well as a special thing which you can, because otherwise if you just be like you can get just this thing, then it'll just be that and then they'll just not go. So you need that currency there, and I understand why people bring
but it has to be sellable too, is what I'm saying. It has to be ridiculously
I think the achievement
ridiculously rare drop that's like on the level of Chag Jarrett. And sellable, so like you get 5,000 gold on the trading post or something.
I think the mount skin and stuff should be. I think you should have some personal stuff that isn't sellable.
Sure. I wouldn't be mad at a sellable mount skin though.
No, I mean, because then you could just continuously farm those and earn profit. And I honestly don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, there should be, like you said, Jeb, there should be multiple levels of incentive to do this. I do find that quote that you put in, I think from Screen Rant, was, I think that feels like a fair assessment of this, and the fact that they acknowledge that maybe where the past strike missions were, and hopefully where they felt like this one was even at a normal level. Again, it gives me hope. I truly think this type of content has a ton of potential. I think a lot of us are just nervous to see how it's implemented, you know? But I think the potential is there, and there's a lot of logic behind doing this. I have a lot of faith because I do think there are areas, we love this game and the team that makes it, like there are areas that these things shine. So I really want them to do well. I think there's just a lot of apprehension around it too, because, I mean, again, while we've had previews and all kinds of stuff, we haven't necessarily really had a bullet point discussion about like exactly what they're doing with all of this in a bigger picture. So I am excited about this. I do think there's a lot of promise. I just think we have to get in and see, and then hear more from them in the months following. And nobody ever wants to go into it being like, oh, I'm going to be the person that this expansion, I'm going to be the stinky boy in the corner where everybody else is excited and I'm making fart noises, because I just don't, you know what I mean? Like, I think we have to keep an open mind and try to enjoy the things that we'll enjoy. But with these strikes, because we haven't had any other context or info, there's just a lot of uncertainty. And I really hope they pull it off, because I think it could be great. And I think it could be a stepping stone. And I do think there could be a lot of fun things with it. We just have to see.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going through the... I would just start looking at the ArenaNet team and see if they actually had the raid... Because they used to have raid titles to people, didn't they?
Yeah,
they
that
had
was disbanded a while ago.
Yeah, it was disbanded. But I think they just put it into something else. And... Yeah, there's no
team.
Yeah, Encounters team, right? Just interesting. Okay.
I may need to go soon.
Okay, we'll probably be wrapping up. And then when soon?
Like
2 minutes.
ASAP.
Okay. Do you want to head off now? Is that easier?
Sure. If you guys are gonna continue, yeah, go ahead.
We've got a little bit of wrapping up to do, so we still got to do outros and stuff. And if
I could stick around if it's just a wrap up.
Well, I mean, a wrap up, isn't like we still got a little bit to talk about.
Okay, fine. I'll stay forever.
No, but you can go.
You can go.
need to
It's
go.
okay.
If you have things that you need to do, pop off, King.
It's fine. I think I can
Voodoo?
stay. I want to see what happens when I leave.
Oh no.
You want to see what happens when you leave.
Yeah. Well, like, what would have happened if I had left? What would have been happening on the thing?
Oh, but now you're here. Now that
I'm here, now it's not
timeline
gonna
doesn't
happen?
exist.
Oh no!
Do you watch sci-fi? Have you seen Back to the Future? I mean, come on now.
Future? No, I haven't. What is that? A movie? A TV show?
Well, next time on the Lightbringers podcast, we'll be doing a watch-a-thon to educate Boots.
Well, actually, we're not
So-
allowed to do that. People have been doing that in Rook recently, and they're going to trouble. Okay.
But we will be watching New Kaineng City live stream by
We will,
ArenaNet
yeah.
next week.
That is
That's true,
actually what
actually.
is going to be on the stream next week. That's true. If these awesome people want to come back, well, which is when hopefully we'll get the announcement. You never know. Okay. Anyway, so one thing I thought a massively OP quote here as well. If you liked Icebrood Saga's strike missions, I don't think you'll find anything too surprising or new about this fight, which is the new one. But I also think it will be a fun addition to the current rotation of strikes. More of the same isn't a bad thing.
Oh.
Massively OP. Is more of the same
Jeb.
thing not a bad thing? That's a
I
question.
literally that is the article I read for my
sorry.
video. That is the article I read for my video, and I literally said, for an expansion, don't we want new things?
Oh, I mean, that's it. I mean, what is it? I mean, is it? I didn't say it. Like someone else said it. It was that's the quote. What does everyone think in the chat? Like this, should we get a vote going? Let's get a vote for it. Let's actually do that. More of the same isn't a bad thing, is the question, or not even a question. It's a statement, and they just say yes or no.
I mean, hey, we'll have different mechanics. That's cool. I still think that it's really upsetting that we're only getting 4 strike missions, and one of them is already an enemy that we have fought before. So it's like already a thing off on my grading scale. Okay, but that means that there are 3 unique maybe models that we haven't seen before with totally new story and encounters and all that stuff. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked very hard to bring us to a more positive spot, Jeb, and then you had to drop there.
Yeah.
That was the drop.
Wouldn't it have been
Like,
so much better if we had wrapped up?
Yeah.
You just want to go.
And
You just want to go. I'm bringing the questions, people. I'm not saying that that's a bad
We're
thing
doing the
necessarily.
hard-hitting journalism by
Well,
referencing
the
other
right,
Reading
the
other
right
people's
hasn't
journey.
taken that as a bad thing. They've said more of the same isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, you know, I mean, is it?
unless
That's
the thing that you're getting is not good.
I mean, yeah. That's pretty straightforward. Yeah, like if you're eating chocolate cake, more chocolate cake's nice. But I guess you could also say everything in moderation. But if you're eating poop, more poop is not great.
I'm going to devil's advocate this.
I mean,
We're gonna play
you can
DADA,
devil
attempt to turn it
advocate
into attorney.
whatever you like.
Which is just to say that I don't hate the other strike missions.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't hate them. I thought some of them were actually really fun extensions of what I would have wanted from some of the narrative beats. I really liked confronting the Bone Skinner, and while it did super bum me out like the week after when I learned that everybody had cheese stratted it, I actually really loved that fight. Visually, I love the enemy. I think that creature is horrific and so interesting, and the thing with like the flickering torches and like this desperate plea to keep the arena lit. I think the concepts were good. I think that they did not have the full vision of what they needed to do for these. And like, that's where we've fallen short. But like, to write off all the strike missions as just being like garbage, I don't particularly like, I don't agree with, because I do think there were a lot of fun things. I even liked that weird jump puzzle that leads up to that one, because again,
Oh
it's
my god, I
like,
die so much.
it's like, but again, it's
That was the
featuring
most challenging
something.
part of the strike
It
mission.
was actually, it literally
I know.
is.
It is, because I agree that I think the actual strike mission after that is a bit of a letdown in comparison as far as a difficulty scaling goes. But it's one of those things where the potential again, I'm going to choose to buy into it because I think that thematically and concept wise, they have done some cool things. I loved that part in the Whispers fight where you get, I think they could have realized it a little bit better, but you get split off and you're like facing yourself and like this, like, I loved that. I thought that was
That's
such a cool idea. So again, I think that like the ideas are there. They just have to keep realizing them on like a better, bigger scale with just more robust support in them. But
So
I don't want it to sound like they're all garbage, you know?
No, of course not. Perhaps the writer here knows.
Oh, they've not said they're bad at all.
Yeah, they know about the Bone Skinner, they know about the Whisper, they know about the good parts about the strike missions as well. And
I don't think there's any.
It's more of the good stuff of the strike missions.
Yeah, I don't think they've said it's bad. I think it's more of they've said like, you know, it's the same. And whereas maybe we think as a society, like if you always get the same thing, then, you know, it's just boring and bad. Whereas, you know, a lot of the same thing, a lot of people actually like, and that's fine. But like, which is why the saying exists in the first place.
Apparently, the most popular ice cream flavor is vanilla.
There you go. Because
no, there are areas to improve, right? But
wait, why did you laugh then?
I laughed because okay, sorry, let me explain. I immediately thought of the fact that okay, the Baldur's Gate. This is such a tangent. I wasn't going to talk about it, Jeff.
I'm ready.
I'm ready as well. Let's go.
Baldur's Gate 3. They have this incredible character creator, and you can make all these fantasy D&D races, and you can have wild skin tones and all this other stuff, and it's amazing. And for funsies, the developers compiled the most made character to see what like the community's appearance was, and it was just a white dude.
Of course it was.
It's a human male.
It was like
a white
literally
human male.
the most bland looking human man you could possibly
I'm surprised it wasn't like female character though.
It looked a lot like me.
Oh,
it looked a lot like you.
Boots, but you're cuter, Boots. You're cuter. So
everyone made Boots in Baldur's Gate.
Sometimes people with the most basic looking faces are the most memorable.
What?
Okay, I want to take a second here because I believe in lifting each other up. Boots, your face is not me.
Oh god!
Wait, what happened?
We have a lot of very good-looking, wonderful people on this cast. You're all great.
Oh my god!
I didn't hear. Did Kroof make fun of me?
Kroof,
did you make fun of me?
Oh my god!
Oh
my god, Kroof,
gosh.
I can't believe it. We should have just wrapped up, I think.
We probably should have. You know, it's really taken a downturn since then. No,
I can't believe chat missed this. I'm the one person.
Okay, but that's why I laughed, because like, yes, sometimes that is the median. However, I agree that sometimes it's just because people don't know what else to expand their minds to, right? I think you have to keep pushing forward, and I think you have to keep encouraging people to do things even outside of their comfort zone. But trying to figure out and grapple with the problems of how you do that is something that I think we've seen very clearly illustrated in strike missions. I do think there's potential. Like I said, I think there's also a lot of very, very valid critique to be made about this and the current state of Endgame PvE and the uncertainty of it in Guild Wars 2. So that's really going to be one of my major focuses as we get into it to kind of see what happens moving forward. But overall, I do think there's a lot of potential and a lot of good things that they can build on. They just have to seize them and build on them. And I just want to see them come out swinging with these strikes. Like, I really do want to see them surprise and delight us, but for the right reasons.
Oh God, I hate that phrase.
You know, for the reasons in that we are not surprised and delighted that they came out of nowhere, but because they really honed in on the thing that they were doing and deliver something to us that is a thematic and mechanically intriguing piece of content. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Better keep your fingers crossed, everyone. Better keep them crossed. I mean, I'm strikes. I mean, for me personally, I'm excited for strikes. For a lot of other people, I will play them and I will probably enjoy them. But I do enjoy the strikes. I think they're good. Again, I think a reason why strikes have been just. Again, it's balance. I just think it's balance is such a big key thing that need to be on for this expansion. I think I'm genuinely, even if they come out at 4 strikes and the strikes don't come to have. The modes don't come out for a bit. I think if they get balance right for the expansion, I am saying it right now, I think the most important thing for this expansion is flipping balance. It is. It really is. If they can sort balance where the meta is going to change consistently to make people change, because I think Guild Wars 2 players are actually really, really good and accepting of changing how you play, because I think they would welcome it after all of these years. It is I think ESO is a little bit more stuck in the ways for sure of wanting to make sure we stay in the same place with our builds and stuff. But Guild Wars 2 seems very different. I feel like if they can, even just in PvP and World v World, new elite specs, it's gonna, because elite specs just inject this whole new exciting way of playing the game. And it really, I'm so excited for the expansion just because of elite specializations. That's the main thing where I'm like, fuck yeah, there's gonna be a Harbinger, man. I put a clip on Twitter the other day just of me 1v2ing in the Harbinger pistols, and I was like, damn, this is so exciting. It was so fun. I lost the fight. I didn't care because it was just new ways of playing, and I got this clutch kill, and then this other guy got me, and it's just it's so fun. But then I was like, okay, well, are we going to be able to cheese things? What abilities? And then you start thinking in your head, what abilities are going to be used to cheese this? What abilities are going to be used to be a more tanky character as a damage dealer? If we're going to be a damage dealer, you shouldn't be able to survive. If you're going to be a healer, you survive forever, but you can't kill someone else. Things like this, they really need to jump on as soon as, and they've told us that balance is going to be something which they look at more closely. They're going to be doing regular balance. They're going to do it on post-launch, but they didn't say whether or not this was going to be a permanent thing. They said that they were going to look at it more closely and do it more regularly after launch, post-launch, and I'm not sure if that's going to be a regular thing they do forever, because we all know that balance patches are slow and take a long time. Sometimes we get a significant balance patch once a year. I mean, significant balance patch, and sometimes significant can be 2 years or even longer. To the point because a significant balance patch is where you change the gameplay and style of all classes, not just one. But if you change, take barrier away from Scourge, then you need more healing and stuff like that. So people just bump it on. Anyway, that's my rant about balance. And that's what... But the thing is, it will make strikes more difficult. It will make people want to find new ways of killing things. It will bring more challenge. It will bring more... What's the word I'm thinking about? Give you more of a sense of achievement as well, of just killing something, rather than just you take in new players we've done post raids, and we take someone in and we go oh yeah, don't worry about what you've got, which we've got 5 scourges. You can just bring your level 80 character with no gear. Just come naked. Who cares? You're gonna have barrier anyway. It doesn't matter. We can do it without you if we want as well. You can just AFK. And it's that kind of thing. So I think for me, after my rant is now done, just balance the damn game. And if they do that, that would be fantastic. I love all of the face of the arena, folks. But I've been saying this for years. Okay. Last thing.
Okay.
Unless anyone else wants to say anything. Sorry, I just had to rant that for a second.
I'm still recovering.
Boots, we're so grateful to have you on this cast. I feel like we're going to need to all send Boots messages after this.
No,
Boots, please come back.
Don't bring attention to it. Just let it go.
Boots is fine. Boots is Canadian. They're hard as nails.
It was a joke. I'm Palawa Joko.
Okay, last quote. No, wait, two more.
Two more.
Damn. Boots leave.
2 more. One from PC Invasion. This is just listen. The strike mission wasn't the last stop on our tour. However, it is the last thing we can talk about for now. Check back in a couple of weeks. Early February. for more information. PC Invasion. One more quote, which is we're going to end it on happy, cheerful
Oh, hold on,
notes.
Tio. Actually, right there, that's an important point. It sounds like there are stages of
There's
embargo.
more. Yes, there's more stuff.
So yeah, it's very possible that there's a lot more.
Yeah, and we can talk about. I hope that might be early February. So that's not going to be. That's going to be after the next stream.
And I did see that Blueberry in the chat. This will be our tempering. It's bringing us back to the middle line. Blueberry in chat said that there is something that is meant to be a more exciting reveal that couldn't be talked about right now, and that they themselves felt middle ground about it. So I guess we'll see.
I think that's that could be the new mastery. I think. Yeah, I think that could be the new mastery. Okay, so then that's exciting. Exactly. Yeah, if it could be more specific to some people, maybe as well. Okay, although there's not much, I can't remember which article this was in, but I liked it. I put a little smiley face with a tear at the end. Although there's not not too much longer to wait for End of Dragons, I wrapped up my preview wishing I could stay logged in for a bit longer. It feels like the theme of this whole expansion, whether by multi-seater mounts, fishing with pals, or bridging the gap between communities, is togetherness.
Aww.
Which is why I logged off, thoroughly excited to come back to Camphor with the rest of the excited community. They liked it, everyone. In the end, with everything we've said today, they enjoyed their experience. One of the people who did the articles. I'm pretty sure other people did as well.
Many people seem to enjoy it. I mean, and
Yeah.
I'm so excited because I agree. And I love seeing that they're putting this stuff in the game and that they're encouraging people to be together. Because when it comes down to it, I think I've met more people, including you three, in this community that I genuinely love and that I'm so excited to adventure with than nearly any other game. So it is something that is really special. And the fact that they are buying into that above all else, I think is a really incredible thing for this expansion.
Yeah, there's no official release date yet. There's no official release date. Marina have not said, so no matter what has been leaked or no matter what has been data mined, doesn't matter because that is not the release date. And I don't want to know what it is if someone knows. And if someone said it out on a video, then I mean, everyone can guess.
Everyone
I
can
think
watch
it's probably
Val made a video on the
2/22.
release date. Go watch it.
Didn't we say 2
Okay.
before? Because it sounds like a gun. Like a
Jebro, can you pull
Yes.
up Valen's video real quick?
Can I pull up his video quick?
Yeah, about the release date on End of Dragons.
Oh,
Yeah,
is it
Valen did a really
meme thing?
comprehensive video about it.
No, it's actually really good. It's really in depth.
Oh.
It's a good.
It's a good one.
Oh wait, I know. Yeah, I've seen this video.
I've
really
not
good.
seen it actually.
It's really good.
Oh. It's got 17,000 views.
It's actually a pretty well done.
I can't play
It's
the
very well
audio.
edited. Yeah.
I can't play the audio. So,
As long as you saw it.
I mean,
That's all
I've
that
seen it
matters.
now. And I'll put it in the chat as
That's
well.
all that matters.
Like he actually like
Can you believe that?
matches scene to scene of the.
Good lord. We need to get
vibes.
Valen on the podcast so he can do something else with his time.
Oh, great vibes.
That's amazing. I need to go and look actually listen to the song. Yeah. I thought there was actual date in there. That's actually hilarious. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up. Is there anything else anyone wants to say first?
Kroof, I love you.
Ditto.
I love the tune that I picked for you to say that under the Farron's flyer. It's so
You
good.
have a very stark, unique face.
Unique. I have a eunuch face.
No, you don't have a eunuch face. Wow.
I mean,
we
you can
really
have a
brought this
unique
full
face,
circle
but then the unique
with,
other
like,
stuff, maybe not so much.
Why did one of the earliest jokes we made on this podcast have to be Syphilis? Why did we start today's
Oh
cast
my
making
God.
an Oedipal reference? And why now are we making jokes about eunuchs? Are we 200 years old?
It's because of
Are we-
Kroof and Rook. It's because of you
I mean,
two.
Rook, you and I, we are the duo that would rain the hell on the internet.
I
We
mean,
are.
That's correct. We do. Mm-hmm.
I'm just sitting here being sensible. Which is surprising, actually.
Oh dear.
Undercover.
You're the only one to persistently cuss, though.
That's true. And you were the
You're
one
not
who told us to
infallible.
try. You told us to not try to curse, and look at us all doing good over here with our soapy clean mouths.
Fine. I mean, I've
None
only
of us
cussed
are
once
perfect.
this stream, to be fair.
All right, it's time to wrap up.
Wow,
No,
Boots just wants to
Boots, I
go
wanna
to
keep-
dinner and is ruining
My,
the best part
my
of the
wife
show.
literally texted me waiting
over
to
here.
eat dinner.
Oh, tell her to bring it in here for you, and you can both eat together in
Wow.
front of the
No,
stream.
no, I gotta go.
It's so
I gotta
romantic.
go.
Mukbang
though.
vibes.
Mukbang. Okay, let's go. Right,
Boots to the outro.
Tell us what you do and where you do it. That is the
Who,
end of the
me?
podcast. Yeah.
Oh, I am Boots. You can find me on World of Vendors on YouTube, also on Twitter, and then Boots_WOE on Twitch. And you know me.
Hand person.
True.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Boots, for coming on once again. And say thank you to your wife, and I'm sorry. Directly from
Yeah.
me. I appreciate her waiting for you, and you waiting for us.
My pleasure.
Kroof,
Oh.
tell us
Oh,
the
hi.
things.
I'm Kroof. I do a lot of stuff on YouTube over at Kroof. I do a lot of Twitter. I've
at
been
Kroof.
loving Twitter.
Is this the Kroof platform now?
No, on YouTube, you can find it at Kroof, Kroof. Twitter, same, Kroof. Twitch here, you know, we have a good time. We get
Kroof
down.
_Kroof_ on Twitch.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It was always great. Always love talking to you all. Thanks.
On the Kroof platform live now. Rook, please. Boots is just slowly
Sure.
getting more aggravated.
I am Rook, and I prepared a short essay for today's outro. So, I'm kidding. You can find me, I'll make this fast. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv, Rookery, ROOKURI. You can find me on YouTube, where I do lore videos and all kinds of other stuff. You can find me on Twitter, Rookery_, because I was copying Kroof. And you can find me on Instagram as well. But wherever we are, you're always welcome to connect. And we goof, we laugh, we have a great time. We play a lot of video games.
Amazing. And last but certainly not least, me. In the hair department, probably. Not the one with the basic face.
So assuredly said, certainly not last me.
Yeah, exactly.
Or at least, certainly
Of
not
course.
least me.
I'm the one who made this thing. Right? Damn it. I'm allowed to.
Because I know
up my-
exactly
up
who
myself.
least is. All right.
Twitch.tv/JebroUni, the LightBringers podcast, up to the release of the End of Dragons expansion will probably be weekly, in all honesty, because there is not long left. Next week we will be talking over and watching the guild chat, and we'll be talking about it posts as well. Hopefully we'll have a release day. There'll also be the embargo lift and the other articles, as well as tons of other stuff we are hoping will come out into hype up the expansion. If you do want to support me and the channel as well as the work that I put in, which is quite a lot, there's 5 pages on that document, just saying. I had to read a lot of articles. I do a lot of work for many things. If you do want to support me, this is the only way I make money, so send me it, or just chuck me a follow and join us on Twitter and all the things. I have a massively inclusive community who are awesome. If you identify in any way of whatever, just come join us, come say hello, come hang out. I will do a better job of that next time. But also check out the podcast, which is also going to be on Spotify, iTunes, all the things. Otherwise, please check out my fantastic guests. If you want to buy the expansion, there is a link below in the YouTube VOD for each one of these fine people where you can buy the expansion and you can help support them as well. I would massively appreciate it. Otherwise, I've been Jebro. This has been the rest of the team doing the things. And we will see you next time on the LightBringers podcast. Goodbye for now. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.
By the way, I don't think you have my link. I remember purposely not giving it to you.
Yes, you did. You ruined the
Wow.
outro. Thank you. Now you definitely have a
GG.
basic face.
Wow, brutal.
Oh my.